Thank you, everybody. The first item is we're going to invite those who want to comment on an item that's not on the agenda up to speak. And I know that we don't have an agenda there. We're trying to do paperless, so that's why we don't have agendas in the back. But if you have a question about that, otherwise, if you came here and just wanted to make a general public comment that's not already on our agenda, please raise your hand. Okay. Thank you. So because we don't yet have a quorum, which is we need to have 4 commissioners here, we're just going to take presentations right now. And then once that commissioner arrives, then we'll start to do the agenda, the voting items. So Shelley, can you go ahead?
Yes, we're under announcements. I have a few announcements for the commission. Just an update on the memorial tree and plaque that you moved on to council. That was approved by council on September 5th. As a reminder, there's an advisory body event you received an email about, and that event is October 18th. So if you'll please make sure to RSVP to the city clerk. This is an update and hopefully a exciting little update at the Ocean View Community Garden. We're going to do some tree trimming that is we've been wanting to get taken care of, and that should happen in October. So we can have a report about the community garden after that. As you know, Music in the Park is Wednesday nights in September, so we have 2 more Wednesday nights, the 19th and the 26th. So I hope you guys will come out and check that out. And then the big event in September is Dinner with Albany. That takes place every 2 years. This year it's on September 29th, and you probably have heard that it's sold out very rapidly. We have more tables than we ever had. We do that every year that we do it, though. But we'll have about 600 dinner tables out that night. It's 5:30 to 9:30 on the 29th. And then finally, the week before Dinner with Albany is Albany Local Week, where we challenge residents to do everything in Albany for 1 week, and we coordinate with local businesses, and the Recreation Department puts on 8 or 9 events that week. So we're really busy, but it's a very fun week in Albany. And those are my announcements.
Great. Thanks. Go ahead.
Just wanted, as far as announcements, I just wanted to mention that I've noticed that the sculpture is going in at San Gabriel and Portland. That's very exciting. Happy to see that. We worked on that a little bit over the years. And I just also want to recognize a successful Solano Stroll. The city has a big part in that, but really it's put on by the Solano Avenue Association, and I know they do a ton of work, and it was a great event. Just wanted to announce that. Thanks.
Thank you. So I think the next item is presentations. Right?
She's here. Want to go back to the minutes and take care of that?
Oh, right. Okay. So no problem. If we could look at the minutes from the last meeting and approve. Let's see. Yeah.
Neither Gino nor I were here, so you two are going to have to.
Okay. So.
All right, let me try and access my.
I have it right here too. If you want to see it.
That was removed from the agenda. Yes. So I motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, okay, second. All in favor? Yeah. Okay, so the next item, so now we go on to presentations, and we have Merritt College Arboriculture Program Volunteer Projects on Albany Hill by Margot Cunningham.
Good evening. I'm Margot Cunningham, and I work on vegetation projects on Albany Hill. And before I talk about the Merritt College Partnership, I'd like to let you know that next month at the Parks and Rec meeting in October, I'll be giving an update on vegetation management projects that we have accomplished so far and projects that we're going to be working on in the coming months. A couple of months ago, we were approached by Eric Fulmer here of Merritt College about doing a mutually beneficial partnership between the arboriculture program at Merritt College and the city of Albany to do tree work on Albany Hill. And Eric teaches in the landscape horticulture department at Merritt. He's also a certified arborist. He's been doing tree management work for the past 4 decades. He has a tree company called Tree Wolf that actually did some work for the city of Albany in past years. This will be mutually beneficial because a component of the program at Merritt is that students get real-world experience doing things that they would do in their tree work careers, and Albany Hill has plenty of work for that. So Eric will be teaching students how to climb trees, how to prune trees, and how to take out trees. And the city of Albany will benefit because there is a lot of work that can be done up there, from taking out dead branches that overhang trees and roads, and also taking out invasive plants that pose fire hazards. There's also an ecological aspect to it because taking out invasive plants allows the native plants to come up and take over, and so it's good for the ecosystem health. All of the work is going to follow guidelines that are in the Albany Hill Creekside Master Plan, and I will guide areas where they're going to work. They will not work in areas where monarch butterflies cluster, and when the work coincides with bird nesting season, a qualified person will check for nesting activity beforehand. So I think at this point, I'll have Eric come and give some more details about the arboriculture program, what students are going to be doing, and then we'll take questions from you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Good evening. I am Eric Fulmer, and I'm a teacher at Merritt College Landscape Horticulture. And they have taught tree work and arboriculture for many years, but as a new thing, we're creating a program. It's going to be a 2-year degree in arboriculture starting this semester. So we have classes in tree climbing, pruning, working with equipment, and all different things that are related to that. So we were looking for a project where we can do some good work, and that's good to train people. So the Albany Hill is ideal, and I walked the hill with Margaret. We looked at a different project. So we can start out with some pruning, removing dead branches over trails. Later on, we get more students a little bit more experience. We can remove trees and just work with her and do whatever is best for everybody. So do you have any questions of me?
Thank you. Do you want to open up to questions? Anybody have questions? I just,
Okay.
I was just curious if you've done this sort of partnership before with other cities or other communities?
Merritt College has, and they have certain classes like in construction where they have classes go out and work with the industry or some company. So they have done that before, and they have written up MOUs that we can look at as working out with Albany.
Great.
I had a question. It says that you'll be kind of stomping down any small brush. I assume that's for fire danger, but I know that birds really like having brush piles. So
Right.
I guess I just wanted you guys to explain more the logic behind trying to get rid of any brush piles that could be beneficial
Yeah,
habitat.
I mean, the major brush that we can get to, we can chip. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. The logic is to reduce fire danger. And then the other aspect is that it's good habitat if it's not stomped down and cut small. So we'll work in Margaret. We'll find a compromise that, the fire department is happy and provides some habitat.
I guess, one question comes to mind, and I'm concerned about liability. If an accident happens on the hill, what's the city's exposure? Do you have any idea?
Okay.
We're working with the city attorney on an MOU and liability insurance, so that will be taken care of.
Okay, very good.
And he's going to start work in October 20th, so he'll be coming out on Saturdays. I believe it's 5 Saturdays in October and November.
And is this being coordinated with the potential work? Like, I know we're going to talk later about potential trees being removed. Is it going to be coordinated with that effort?
Yes, yes.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
I was wondering, is the MOU is it kind of defined assisting the Albany Hill area, or is there a possibility to do more than that in Albany?
It would be Albany Hill for now, yes.
Any other questions? We don't take comment, do we, on this, or we do? We do, okay. So no more clarifying question? Okay, so if anybody, thank you. If anybody would like to speak on this item, please. Okay, go ahead. If you please just say your name.
Carol Fitzgerald. Eric, I teach at City College, your sister branch over in the city, so welcome. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, anything that works with young people. I would like to have a lot of consultation with our master birder, Ralph, who's here tonight. So perhaps you can work with Ralph when you get things more formulated. And I would hope that, I would like to have you kind of keep abreast, like they give reports from time to time so that the public has an opportunity, because a lot of the work that Margot's been carrying on for the last year, it's like, I don't know what she's doing before she does it. And I'm probably in agreement with most of it, but I just want to have a little more accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Maureen Simmons. I've been a resident on Albany Hill for more than 30 years, and I'm also happy to see some of the things that are planned to clean up a little bit of the messiness up there. My concern is I just recently retired from a career in landscape architecture, and whenever we approached a project like this, there were plans, there was a review process of the plans, and there was a presentation. When I heard presentation, I thought that would happen tonight. So I'm a little uncomfortable that we don't really know what this is going to involve. And I'd like to be reassured that at some point in the process, someone will have a drawing and say, well, this tree is going to be removed, that kind of thing. That would be a great help to me. And I agree with the request that there be some connection with the Friends of Albany Hill group, because we are big users of the hill, and we just want to be, I know we're going to like what you're doing, we just want to know before it happens. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
So in response to that, all of the work is going to be following guidelines that are in the Albany Hill Master Plan. And also, Eric gave a write-up that is included in the agenda packet. And if you go to the agenda packet, you can see exactly the work that we're going to do. I walked the hill with Eric, and we looked at different areas and trees to work on, and it's all written up in the packet. So. No, just this is the work that Eric is going to be doing for the arboriculture class. For next month, I will be giving a presentation about work that I've done in general for vegetation management on the hill, and then work that we plan to do in this next coming months.
Does anybody have any other comments on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion or questions.
I think it sounds like a win-win. I mean, you have an opportunity to train your students, and we get some tree work done. I think it's fabulous. I do like the idea of I'm not necessarily expecting you to come up with a written diagram of every limb you're going to cut ahead of time, but some idea. I think particularly the removals are what we'd be concerned about, and I'm sure there's guidelines, and Margot's on top of that, but that would be something we'd want to keep a close eye on. But I think it's fabulous. Very much appreciate you coming with this.
I do have a question. So do those removal requests as part of this project, even if they've kind of been approved already in some ways through the plan, are they still coming through us, through our commission?
On Albany Hill? Mm-hmm. If it's, and I think that the one you're talking, the removals are probably part of the plan, possibly? Is that? We do have Albany Hill, the project, later on this agenda, so we can talk through that part. But you have had hazardous tree removals come here before you, that's part of Margot's project with John. So I think anytime there is a removal, you will be, either will come here for you, like a specific trees, or it's on the list of trees that you guys had approved before for the hazardous tree list.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
You're not looking for feedback, right? It's
No.
just
Okay.
just information.
Thank you. So, so now we're going to get to the items on the agenda, some of which we'll be voting on. So just wanted to, since there's many people in the audience here, just wanted to get a gauge of who's here for what agenda item so that we can be cognizant of your time. So wondering how many people are here for tree removal requests. And then, let's see, the mountain bike park. I think that's most of it because staff are here. Are you all here for the tree removal? No. Mark? No, okay. So it's a different, okay, so I think that's it. I think everybody's here for the removal.
And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I think there's one of the trees that you need to be recused from. Which one is that?
Yeah, so I would like to, I'm going to recuse myself from 1133 Neilson. Is that right? Yeah.
The word from the city attorney is that we're going to have to postpone that item because we dropped below the quorum on that.
Oh.
Due to your recusal. So if you're here tonight, we're going to have to push that one. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry.
So anybody here to talk about 1133 Neilson, it'll be next time.
Yeah, and I guess I can't go back on that recusal now that I said I was going to. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think your agenda item's not going to be spoken about for that reason. Sorry about that. And then I actually have a request that I'd like to, I guess, create a motion. So most of these removal requests, to me, are pretty straightforward. I do have questions about the 520 Stannage, which is the first tree removal request. So I am making a motion to just discuss that one later in the interest of the people who are here to talk about the other ones. So can I get a second on that?
I would like
520
to see which ones people are here to talk about.
Okay.
See if nobody's here to talk about 520.
Okay, is anybody here to speak about 520 Stannage?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So,
I second your motion.
okay, thank you. So all in favor of removing, okay, thank you. So 520 Stannage just to the end of our tree item discussions. So, okay, so I think then we will first start with 601 San Gabriel, street tree removal for one liquid amber at 801 Key Route Boulevard. Is that right?
You said 601 San Gabriel's the first one.
Sorry, yeah, oh, that's weird. Okay, sorry. So street removal application for one camphor and one crepe myrtle at 601 San Gabriel.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I kept on looking backward.
There's an extra line there.
Okay. 601 San Gabriel is the Albany Middle School Annex project. They're requesting removal of two trees. One is a camphor and one is a crepe myrtle, and they're both on Brighton, the Brighton side.
Yeah.
So this is just a picture of the project where it stands, but on the top of the picture are some dead limbs on the camphor tree. So the camphor tree I'm recommending be removed because of the condition of the tree, regardless of the project. I think the tree should be removed. The crepe myrtle, we'll get to that. So here's the camphor tree. It's, make this full screen. Use. This? Oh, that's, yeah. A little bit better. So that's the camphor tree. It's a little more than 50% dead, basically. What you're looking at are dead limbs in the tree. We could prune those out. We'll leave very little tree left there. So it's caused a little bit of damage to the curb. You can see the roots running down the planting area there, but the curb's pushed out a little bit. Here's more pictures of dead limbs, more dead limbs. Some epicormic sprouting along one of the limbs. Most of the growth on the tree is survival sprouting. It's last gasp sprouting, trying to produce some energy. Also on that, you can see a hit from some kind of vehicle, that limb that hanging over the street. So there's a scar on the tree. And then at the bottom of the tree, there's some more sucker growth out of the root zone. So that's, again, the tree just struggling to survive its last gasp. Here, again, the curb being pushed a little bit, not too much, but it won't get any better than that. Okay, so the second tree is the crepe myrtle, and from the standpoint of the tree itself, the tree is healthy. It's in good condition. My recommendation, based on the health of the tree, was to deny the removal of this tree. This is, the tree is located in the area where a driveway needs to go for the project. So that's the issue with this. There's some tree protection there. It was a little bit ignored, but not too bad. No damage to the tree. So here's the overview. When they started the project, I asked, they wanted to remove the tree at that time, and I told them about going through the process and had them move their access driveway over a little bit, but the final driveway is planned to go where that tree stands now. Where the driveway is now, a building will be basically blocking 2/3 of that area. So, and there's the tree. And what else to say about this? I don't have much more to say about it. I think it's going to be up to the commission to decide how we deal with both the trees, actually.
So, questions from the commission? No?
Oh, there was mention of possibly replanting. Could you say a little, I mean, clearly it would have to be done right away, you say. Could you say more about that?
Well, I think we have some representatives here for the project, but I discussed several alternatives to
Straight removal.
replacing the tree, because obviously they wouldn't be able to replace the tree where it would be removed from.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? No? So now we'll accept public comment for this item. Any public comments? Casual here.
Val, would you like that diagram to be up that was submitted, or?
I'm good, thank you. Good evening, Commission. My name is Val Williams. I'm the superintendent for the Albany School District. The tree that is still alive and thriving, we would actually like to move that tree. I'm a strong supporter of trees, and which is why we're planting quite a few trees actually on the middle school annex campus. We have about, I think, 14 or so trees that we want to put in that area. What I'd like to do is, I know there are, across the street of Brighton, which is where the main campus of the middle school is, there are a couple of empty tree wells. I hope I'm using the right terminology, and I apologize, I'm really good with educational terminology, not so much with trees. But we could move that tree to that other spot. I want to make sure that if we need to move a tree, that it goes right, pardon me, it goes right back into Mother Earth. It's just got to be back in a place where it can grow and thrive. So we would, if the board or commission would consider it, is for us to take that tree and move it across the street to one of those empty tree wells. Once we complete the construction for this annex, I think we can take a look at if there's an available place to put a tree. I do know that there are a couple of other trees right on Brighton that's next to the tree that's, I think you said was dying, and the tree that is thriving. I know we don't want to put trees too close together unless we purchase and plant maybe a smaller tree that is more conducive to what the city is looking for in terms of planting trees in the area. So we would like to actually keep that tree alive if possible.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
So I guess I would ask, my understanding is I don't think you would be able to just dig down where the tree well is and get the tree in there. It's going to, because the root ball is going to be bigger than that. Would that be a fair assumption, or a tree of that age or size?
It would have to be done professionally. You'd have to, you know, we can't just dig up a tree with shovels and pull it out and move it, but it could be dug out with the root ball pretty much intact, you know.
Well, and then I figure, I'm thinking of replanting across the street where there's a tree well. My guess is the tree well is probably bigger than the space.
The discussion that I had with Adam Bayer.
Actually, Adam is here too.
Hi, Adam, sorry. We discussed possibly replanting where the camphor is being taken out.
Okay.
The entire sidewalk is going to be redone there, so it'll be wide open. Across the street, there's a couple empty tree wells, basins, whichever.
Okay.
To me, those are established tree locations. We wouldn't be gaining anything. We'll plant those eventually.
Oh, I see.
So that's why I'd prefer the tree to be planted where the camphor's being taken out. But then there's the question of replacing the camphor. So we're taking out 2 trees. We're saving one. We're losing one. But on property, we're gaining, I think it's 15 trees. Yeah.
In terms of construction, would that camphor, where the camphor is right now, would that be available to have another tree planted, the myrtle?
Yes, we
Okay.
could actually, if you want to keep it on that side, absolutely. I thank you for sharing that the city already had plans for that across the street. So yes, if we want to take the existing, on my plan it says tree A, so for purposes, tree A, that's a live tree, and put it where we're removing the tree, the camphor tree B, right? Absolutely happy to do that.
Okay, and so in terms of the total net loss or net gain, is that something we could, I mean, as a matter of the city tree policy, you do have to replace, right? So it's a -1, and so eventually after construction, we can add that additional tree back. Is that what you're thinking, John?
Well, there'd still be a loss of 1 tree.
Because there's no other room for the...
One street tree, I should say. Again, there's the 15, they're on property trees, but there'll be trees that's...
Because there's no room? Is that, I just want to understand why that would
There's not really
be...
any place on the property to plant. The San Gabriel side is fully treed.
I see. So the construction will effectively be closing up a tree well, one of the tree wells?
Yeah.
Way is gonna
I
go
see.
over.
Okay.
One of the options or solutions to this that Adam offered was, he told me that they're going to open up the planting strip, possibly pave it with DG, disintegrated granite, which gives us more permeable space. It gives the trees more breathing space, also growing space. You know, it's a trade-off, but I see that as a positive, definitely, if we were to be able to open up the plant.
You mean in terms of where the camphor is right now? That space would be...
Well, there's a camphor, there's also an existing melaleuca and another crepe myrtle that will remain in place.
I see.
So that whole strip could be opened up. And
And there's no room there for one more tree?
no, it's
Okay.
pretty tight as it is. Yeah.
And potentially, even if one of the neighbors next door was willing to have a tree, that would be good. Because I see, other than this, there's only one more tree on the block, according to this.
That was another possibility. There is a small empty basin,
Is
just a 2x2, kind of a diamond cut basin. But again, we'd need to talk to the neighbor and have them.
Well, and I was going to say, at that point, probably, if this was the way you wanted to go, you would probably be on the hook for some sidewalk work, because it's going to need to be broken up to, yeah. So that's what I was
Yeah,
getting at.
and as well, that's an established tree basin where there should be a tree planted.
That's true,
Anyway,
but they're adding
it's-
15 trees, and they've got 15, I'm not going to be too
Sure,
concerned
sure.
about
No,
that.
yeah,
And one of the trees of the 15 is near the front anyway, so it's having a nice effect. It's visible as well, so
Yeah,
I support that.
So I guess you said that when you dig out this existing tree, it would cause a significant amount of damage, but that's where the driveway would go, so that's where it actually wouldn't be damaged, it'd just be getting paved over already as part of the plan, right? I mean, so, because
I
it's,
think you're talking about the other tree, the,
It's going to be excavated anyway,
Right.
so you're not damaging
so
the
you're not damaging the
sidewalk, because it's
sidewalk,
going to be
right?
excavated, yeah.
And then in terms of replanting it where the camphor is, what, do we know the likelihood of a tree that's been replanted and surviving versus a new tree?
well, that's a good question. I think we would possibly require some sort of warranty on the tree to assure its survival. If it doesn't survive, we'd have to remove it and replant it with a new nursery tree. But my feeling is if it's done properly, it has a good chance of surviving. It's a crepe myrtle, pretty hardy trees. Yeah.
In terms of like cost to the school district or the city, what is like the most cost-effective way of maintaining trees in these areas? So, because it sounds like it's a lot more expensive to go in and dig out this crepe myrtle and replace it than just to
It
dig out the
is.
camphor and put in a new tree. I mean, I'm not
It is, but-
trying to deny this tree its chance at life. I just
Well,
wonder
the
how
value of an established tree, the tree maybe 10 years old, I'm not sure how old it might be, but compared to a 1-inch sapling that would be put in from the nursery, that also may or may not survive.
so that kind of begs the question, would it make sense to put it across the street then? I mean, we could, right, if there is, just looking at the different options. If you don't want to put it in a less desirable spot just because it'll keep it the city tree, is a street tree.
Well, to transplant,
Right,
The tree?
doesn't matter. If you transplant a camphor spot versus across the street, same chance
it would-
of survival?
well, I think it would be easier to transplant it where the camphor is because the sidewalk's going to be removed. It's
Okay.
going to be demoed and replaced. Across the street, you have an existing tree basin that would be hard to, the tree exists in a 4x4 tree basin. Across the street there is, so it's kind of be hard to cut a nice, clean 4x4.
Sure.
And it sounds like it would work, but it's not that easy to do.
That's why you plant the 1-inch trees in the basins, because they fit when you plant them.
Why we plant what?
Yeah, the young trees and the
Smaller.
cutouts, because they'll
Well,
fit, they grow
yeah,
in
yeah,
and grow under
yeah.
it, rather than
Yeah.
trying to excavate them.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any other comments from the public about this item? No, so do you want to discuss, or anybody has a motion? Do you have
Looking at me.
a discussion? Because you look like you're about to say something. I actually went to take a look at this tree with John, and first of all, thanks, John, for coming up with a creative solution to try to retain this tree. I mean, in terms of, I do recognize it's a 10-year-old tree, but, on our chopping block potentially today are much older trees. So relatively, to me, I didn't see an incredible loss with this
Well,
10-year-old tree.
The
but-
younger tree has a longer life in front of it. The older
Right, but the
trees-
canopy effect, yeah, but the
Sure.
canopy effect is you can't get back from, that tree does not have much of a canopy effect. Anyway, so I personally am supportive of the movement of that tree to where the camphor is, so.
I like the idea of I'm sorry, go ahead, Janice. It's clear the camphor needs to come out. I think we could probably just vote right now and take care of that one, but they're joined, so we'll do it this way. I like the idea of attempting to transplant where the camphor is. And I'm fine with, it needs to be replaced. I'm fine with it being replaced across the street. It is a well-treed frontage, both on Brighton and on San Gabriel. I don't know how much more we can ask. and allow them to have the access they need to have a successful facility.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay.
Okay, then I move, oh, look, I'm gonna do it, that we allow the removal of the camphor and the replacement of the myrtle into the camphor basin and don't require a replacement tree for the myrtle. Ooh, you got all the pieces?
Oh, that's, okay.
Well, I think we have to, I mean, I don't think it's up to us.
Oh, you
that we
have to
replace. It has to be replaced, but not necessarily where.
Ah,
We
got
don't-
it. That we
Yeah,
don't
so we don't wanna-
require it in that specific,
doesn't
in
necessarily
any
have to be
specific
that
location, but that
place.
John will decide.
I mean, I'm not sure we want to go so far as to say any other school district property, because that could be anywhere, but, well, we could.
I agree. I actually like that idea. I think that we should still obligate the purchase or planting of an additional tree to take place of the camphor that's going to be lost, but we're at a more suitable location somewhere.
We don't have a place to plant it. That's the problem on that property.
Right, oh, yeah, there's
No,
no.
right, but at another
We might
location.
consider I mean, we can have them plant the tree in the empty basin across the street. so the
Exactly.
city doesn't have
It's
to-
still
Right.
school district, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would.
I
Okay, so
agree.
maybe we should just first I move that we allow the removal of the camphor.
I second. Yeah, all in favor?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, the second one, that the myrtle be moved to the camphor location.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the third, that the replacement tree be moved to the empty well across the street from the myrtle.
Second,
Okay.
different.
All in favor?
Okay.
I hope that's what you need. Is that clear enough? 3 motions on a single item. That's
Sorry.
good. No, that's fine. I think that was the
I'm
clearest.
still
way-
learning.
I think that was the clearest way to
Yeah,
do
no,
it.
that's great. That's great. Okay, thank you. So next item on the agenda is, let's see, 801 Key Route Boulevard.
It is. Okay, 801 Key Route Boulevard is a dead liquid amber tree. So this should be pretty straightforward. I applied for this after finding a limb laying in the street from this tree. I don't know why I never
Yeah.
noticed that it was standing there dead for a while.
I think, in the interest of time, I move we approve this. I'm not
Well,
sure
do you
we-
want to just take public comment really quick? Unless anybody has any more questions, I don't, or discussion, or questions, just clarifying questions from the commission? No? Okay, public comment? Okay, no, bring it back.
As far as I'm concerned, it's a borderline emergency removal, so I'm perfectly happy to I move that we approve the application to remove the tree this was 801 Key Route?
A second. Okay. All in favor? Okay, thanks.
Sorry, John, I just moved things along.
Next one is 908 Jackson Street.
Okay, 908 Jackson is one property owner requests the removal of a jacaranda that is about 99% dead. So this one should be fairly easy as well. Initially, the property owner wanted this done in while the sidewalk was being repaired. The city did a sidewalk repair job, but this is separate from the sidewalk repair.
Okay.
It would have needed to be removed one way or the other, so.
Okay, thanks. So I think we'll do the same. Any
So-
questions from the commission? Okay, no, public comment? Okay, bring it back for discussion. Discussion? I move to remove the tree on 908 Jackson.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item, 922 Pomona Avenue.
I'm just waiting for everybody to stand up at one point.
Okay, 922 Pomona is a liquid amber. The property owner applied to remove the tree based on damage to the sidewalk. There's the lift in the sidewalk, a good 4-inch lift on the sidewalk. That whole section of concrete is being lifted by the roots of the liquid amber tree. There was previous sidewalk repair, and the owner provided a copy of the encroachment permit for when the repair was done, which was in April 2008. So just a couple
Just beyond
months
the
past
10
10
years.
years.
Looks great for 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. So the tree pushing the curb also, was previous root pruning. This is where the new sidewalk was installed. The roots were pruned for that sidewalk repair. There's this one limb here that is kind of a weak attachment. There's a couple old wounds that are healing over but not quite healed. The one limb on the left it's a little bit included bark, meaning that the limb grew too close to the primary limb there. So that's a spot where there's possible limb failure on a tree like that. Just some more pictures of old wounds on the tree. Also the tree's under high voltage wires, so PG&E has done some tree topping on it, and they'll continue to do so because this tree will continue to grow. So the tree is in pretty good health. As it stands. There is sidewalk damage, there is curb damage, and the tree will need to be continually top pruned by PG&E. But I am suggesting that we deny this based on the health of the tree.
Any questions?
Can you, somebody remind me of the policy that we adopted before about the sidewalk damage and the number of times that has to happen before a tree? I just can't.
It's funny, yeah, we actually haven't adopted it yet formally, and it's going to come before us tonight to sort of finalize, to
The
Shelley?
existing one has to be repaired once prior.
Okay.
Right, and so even if you went by our previous policy, they're not within that time frame. It's too long ago for the sidewalk
Previous
repair.
policy didn't have a time frame.
Oh, you're right, sorry, never mind.
Okay, sorry, so it's the new policy has
Yeah.
the 10-year time.
The 10-year, and then also the prioritization for the sidewalk repair, so.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Any other questions? So public comment on this tree? No, okay, so we bring it back for discussion.
So my thought is this tree is a perfect candidate for some sort of innovative sidewalk, whether it's ramping or it's pretty tight space on the property line, but it seems like there might be a way to fit it in there. I got confused on which my pictures were, so I'm not sure.
Oh, do you want to see?
Well,
Yeah, so,
and was this also the tree that had a broken branch?
no.
That was another one.
That's a different one.
I saw two branches that had dropped.
Yeah, I believe this is on the sidewalk program list. I'm not sure what the priority is on it, though.
Right.
So, I think there already was some arcing.
A little,
The
yeah.
sidewalk was arced out a little
Yeah.
bit to allow some more space for the roots. But these are tough, the liquid ambers. They're going to continually cause damage, but if, I'm looking at the health of the tree, there's not really too much wrong with this tree. There are worse, definitely, liquid ambers in the city. I think it could stand another sidewalk repair.
I mean, I would just say this is one of the trees that I know it can be problematic in some ways, but it's really a big, beautiful, healthy tree with lots of canopy. Well, I don't know how much canopy. Liquid ambers kind of go like this instead of like that,
Well,
but
because this is being top pruned for high voltage wires, it's starting to grow out. That's a problem with a lot of
okay.
liquid amber trees.
I mean, will that eventually damage the tree enough that it won't, it spreads it out too far, it's not going to be striking? The liquid ambers have structural problems, I know, so.
Well, that kind of forces some weeping growth, which
Yeah.
needs to be pruned up a lot, but it also forces limbs to grow out somewhat, and we get a lot of weight on them, and they're liable to break out
Right.
from the weight.
Especially the liquid amber, I'm thinking, which is known in this city anyway for dropping branches.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions?
I do have a question. The break in the sidewalk here, where it's about 3.5 inches up, is that close to a driveway? I can't really tell.
The one that's closest on the picture here?
Right here?
Yeah.
The driveway would be towards us, so
This is 1050. It's funny, I have different I have different pictures for my 1015.
this is 922.
Oh, 922, that's why. Okay.
So there you could see where the driveway starts.
922 Pomona, okay.
It's, I don't know, 8 feet maybe from the tree.
So there's some room to repair the sidewalk.
Yeah, yeah.
Does anybody have any other comments? Then I make a motion to support John
Deny the application.
to deny the application. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, abstain? Okay, okay, so then we have that vote. Okay, next item is 1015 Ramona.
Okay, 1015 Ramona, another liquid amber. The property owner applied to remove it after a large section broke out in the middle of the night. What you see, that stem in the middle, was hidden by the rest of the tree before that stem broke out. So basically, I don't know, it's hard to get a good feel for with this picture, but a good portion of the tree broke out. And the break, I don't have a, let me do like this. All right. So the break is right there. Better. There. So right there, there's a tear in the tree where a really large limb broke out and landed in the street and caused some damage to a couple cars in the neighborhood. What happened? Of course, I clicked on it. Oh, because of that. Okay. So this tree has had a previous large limb failure. I'm not sure when it was, but several years ago, and that's the wound. It's healing over mostly, but not entirely. The left side there is not showing any scar wound wood growing over the wound there. So that wound's going to be open for a long while and is apt to decay. There's another rip in the tree. You can see, let's try this again. So right there was another rip that's starting to heal over, but still there's a nice sized rip in the tree, and there's eventually will be some decay, and right now that's a weak portion of the tree. Down here, there's another old wound that actually is decayed. It's got some wound wood around the outside, but in that hole, it's already rotted, decayed right there. So that leaves that whole section weak, basically. So what else do we have here? A lot of large. Here's a close-up of that old cut there, and you can see on the left side there, it's not really healing over. Here's a couple. There's the one above is another old rip in the tree, and the one below is the wound with the decay inside. There is some sidewalk damage. There's a lift a couple inches. It's close to a water line, about maybe 4 feet from a water line. And there's a sewer line. Is that sewer, I guess? I think that's sewer on the other side, about 4 feet also. Doing some curb damage. That's part of what fell out of the tree laying next to the truck there. So this one I'm requesting that we approve the application because it failed a few times already and it's apt to fail some more.
Any questions?
It says that approximately 12 neighbors, they signed the letter. Was it the letter that we got? There weren't 12 separate letters.
There,
Oh, I see. It's just super light at the bottom.
yeah, there's a letter with 12 signatures from neighbors on that. I think they're all from that block that would like to see
So they
the
view
tree
it as
gone
a public
well.
safety hazard, right?
Yes, yes.
Any other questions?
Just curious, when did the limb fail? It wasn't during the storm or something, it was recently. It's 20, so quite recently, so.
August 6th?
August
was
6th,
it?
yeah, so yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah, and, yeah,
Wasn't
the owner
I went
applied
into,
2
yeah.
days later, yes. So, yeah, it wasn't a windy
Yeah.
occasion, it was the middle of the night.
That's what's particularly terrifying, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question about the history of previous limb failures. Is that documented or is just from what you can tell from the tree?
What I can see and what the owners told me
Okay.
happened there, yeah. I don't have any records of.
Any other questions? Public comments? Yep.
Hello, everyone. My name is Don Barron, and John, if you want to go to that first photo you put up of the initial failure, I'm actually not at 10:15, I'm at 10:17. What's that first picture? Oh yeah, the first one, yeah. So this is our home right here.
Okay.
So you can see that we're very exposed to this tree. So we moved to the community. We moved to 1017 into Albany last December. So we feel really super fortunate and happy and safe to be here. We feel extremely lucky to live here. We moved as a family of 3, and we became a family of 4 in February. So we have a 3-year-old boy and a 6-month little girl. And when the tree fell down on August 6th, we were very confused by what happened. Then we started hearing chainsaws like at 10 o'clock at night, and we came out and there was a massive limb that had fallen down onto a car, and it was pretty terrifying. And in fact, one of the other neighbors who wasn't here spoke to the firefighter who actually asked her to move away from the tree while he was speaking to her because he was worried that there was going to be another failure, or he was really concerned about the tree in general. So, John, you and I spoke that night. There's just obviously a lot of concern for this tree. I would highly encourage the commission to consider removing it. We're a young family, and you can see the exposure we have if one of these things comes down. We're going to have I'm like the property damage is like whatever. We just want to make sure our family's safe. So, thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, bring it back to the commission for discussion.
How about a motion?
Well, as the parent of a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I motion that we approve the removal of the tree.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it.
Okay, next is 1115 Ordway. Property owner applied to remove a dead Brisbane box tree, and for some reason this tree suddenly died. All the leaves are brown. I looked at it and can't really tell what happened, but tree should be removed and replanted. The neighbor recently had a new tree planted, seems to be doing well, so we'll try again here.
Thanks. Questions from the commission? No. Okay, public comment? No, bring it back to the commission.
I did have one question, and it's just my curiosity. The sidewalk looks very new. Is it possible that sidewalk work has damaged the tree somehow?
I
I'm not you're speculating. I'm just curious.
Well, something that I skipped here, there's some damage on the bark, the trunk
Right.
of the tree that I'm not sure what that is. It's not on the street side, so it's not from a vehicle hitting it. But I think that maybe has more to do with it. I don't think this tree's big enough to have caused root problems, sidewalk problems with roots.
I just wondered if when they did the sidewalk, maybe that's where the gash came. Who knows? It was just curious.
That's a possibility, yeah.
I don't think there's any way to know.
But the tree a few months ago was green, and now it's totally brown, so, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Any motions?
I'm prepared to move that we approve the application to remove the tree at 1115 Ordway. How's that sound?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks. And the next item would have been 1133 Neilson, but we didn't have a quorum for that one. So if we can go back to 520 Stannage.
Okay, 520 Stannage is another liquid amber. Let me find. This also was applied to be removed by the property owner. There was limb failure few months previous on this. I think might have been around June or July. A limb fell out and fell towards the property on the tree. So there you can see maybe there's a big tear in the tree right there, which leaves the rest of the top of that tree in not very stable condition. The tree's been topped by PG&E. It's below high voltage wires. It's a little bit difficult to see, but there were a lot of stub cuts, so there's a lot of regrowth where the tree was topped, which doesn't help the health of the tree. So there's a lot of poor unions. The one on the right here is wherever you, there we go. So something like this is where a limb that starts to gain a lot of weight, especially after being topped a lot by PG&E and growing out laterally. This is the type of limb that's likely to fail due to included bark, where two limbs are growing tightly against each other, and eventually they start pushing each other apart. There is some sidewalk damage, there's curb damage on this tree. There's also, well, there's more sidewalk damage. There's some buckling of the asphalt. It's hard to see in the picture, but the roots of the tree have kind of rippled the street a little bit. Tried to get a close-up of that. Looks like there's been some previous root pruning on this, possibly on both sides of the tree. There's also some damage to the retaining wall on the property, which it's hard to say exactly, but it tends to look like that has something to do with the roots growing under the sidewalk and reaching out. So on both sides of the retaining wall. What else? That's just an overview of the tree. I recommend this tree be taken out for similar reasons. It's dropped a limb. It's apt to drop some more limbs. It's been topped. It's not an ideal situation for the tree. And then there's other issues with sidewalk and street and curb damage.
Any questions? Any public comment? Well, maybe this is more of a question, but just, I know that I feel like to me, this one's a little bit questionable because it's a fairly healthy tree, and the recent limb failure, maybe this goes back to a question, so sorry, backtracking a little bit, but, and part of this is because I had a discussion recently with the City of Berkeley urban forester about how, I just wanted to understand how, because I've heard this, like, look, when John and I did a little tour of many of these trees, and we were talking about the problems with liquid ambers, and I just wanted to understand what some other cities were doing, and I had talked with the City of Berkeley before in my research, so they were saying that they had also experienced some limb failures in Berkeley too, I guess 6 trees, that they expect that usually in the fall, but they're not actually cutting those trees down, they are pruning them, and because they do consider it a hazard. I'm just wondering what kind of potential there would be for pruning this tree to make it safer.
Well, if we prune this tree, again, it's already being pruned by PG&E. It's being topped, so there's a lot of stub cuts and a lot of rapid regrowth where the tree's been cut like that. Pruning kind of stimulates more growth. And if we're pruning this tree, it's going to flush out with a lot more leaves, and that's going to add a lot more weight to the limbs. And with the limb structure, the way it is here, there's the one that I pointed out down. Oops, I didn't do that. How do I do this? Oh. So the one that I pointed out there, but there's also these limbs that have not the best unions. You could see the kind of dark. Not really a crack, but that's where a crack will begin. That's when these limbs start getting a lot of weight. Same with this large limb down below here. To me, this is a tree that's going to continually drop limbs.
I'm wondering, though, because PG&E prunes for a different reason, potentially, than safety. They're pruning. So I'm just wondering about pruning in particular to prevent limb failure, which sounds like what City of Berkeley is doing. They weren't doing it for the utility line. They were doing it to prevent another limb failure. And I understand that. I just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful with liquid ambers, categorically feeling like this, liquid ambers aren't suitable. So,
well, yeah, look, we've had 5 or 6 limb failures this summer from liquid ambers. One tree dropped 3 limbs, and we removed it entirely on San Pablo. We talked about that. And the other 2 that were, this wasn't as large a limb failure as the other trees, but it was a sizable limb that came down. To me, there's more risk with the structure of this tree than the other, whatever the other location was that we looked at that we decided to keep. Also, there is sidewalk damage here, and I know that's aside from the health of the tree, but when the sidewalk is repaired, there's going to be some root pruning, which is going to further weaken the tree. If the curbside and the street also get fixed, there's going to be damage on both sides of the tree. Roots are going to be severed, and that's going to make the tree entirely unstable. And it might be a situation where I'd say we want to remove it before or while we're doing that work also. Any number of these, any one of these trees we can hang on to, but we're risking problems with limbs coming down. Once one of these trees starts dropping limbs, that's showing signs that it's weakening, and it's going to continue to drop limbs. So.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about, and maybe this is something we need to talk about today, but just generally, if we are going to have this idea of what's liquid ambers being more prone to being cut because they're not suitable, I don't think we've ever really had that discussion here. I don't know if it's this commission to have at this commission level or the city council level, but it would just be interesting to me if they are so problematic, and there's many with liquid ambers in Albany, for us to be more clear about, okay, you know what, let's give more leeway to this removal request because it's a liquid amber, but I feel like we never really had that discussion. So that's just something, I don't know how, if maybe it's a future agenda item I'd like to discuss, just so we have more clarity as a commission.
I feel that we did, or someone did, about liquid ambers, because when I came on, I'm told we're not planting liquid ambers anymore, and that's for many reasons. So in the past, also, liquid amber removal seemed, just mentioning the name seemed to sway towards, yeah, let's approve this application to remove. So
Okay.
they're definitely a problematic tree in many, many ways. So not a good street tree.
Right, okay.
And I see this tree, and I see that huge tree well, and I'm saying, oh man, that's great. Maybe they can replace it with 2 trees. Maybe that are potentially going to lead to a situation where PG&E is going to have to top them.
Yeah.
Or because it's rare to have such a large space, so that's a great opportunity for
Yeah, that's
gonna be
already,
more.
the space is already open, so that wouldn't
It's a
be
great
another,
space.
an option. In some cases, we say, well, open up the concrete, give the tree more breathing room, and
And they
that
have
helps,
tried.
but
They
it's
clearly
already-
have tried. They tried to
already
keep
done
this
here.
Yeah.
Well, is that an option that we could plant 2 trees there?
It's possible, and since there are high voltage power lines, I wouldn't approve a tree that PG&E needs to prune. We're going to plant a low-growing tree there. So possibly something like crepe myrtle, 2 crepe myrtles could fit in there.
Because I just wanted to remind the commission, when I did my research on Palo Alto's street tree policy, they did that. So if it was a very large tree, very large canopy size, they required replacement with more than 1 tree. So.
And I understand the school district has a crepe myrtle they're looking for a home for, so maybe.
Yes.
Any other questions? You want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the application to remove the street tree at 520 Stannage.
All in favor?
Second.
Oh, sorry, second? All in favor? Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm abstaining.
I would just say no. You can say no.
Okay, so the next item is Albany Hill Access Improvement Project. So.
All right, good evening. I'm Robert Gonzalez. I'm the Capital Projects Manager for the city. So I'm going to be talking about the Albany Hill Access Improvements Project. We're at the 90% design phase. You've seen this project before. The design review I'm going to give you this time is our 90% review, and the elements are the same elements that you've seen before. We're just going to go through more detail. So the Taft turnaround, the Summit Trail, the Jackson turnaround, and the end of Madison. We'll look back at the monarch habitat and show you where the project is relative to the monarch habitat, and we'll get into more detail about the tree protection. The issue that I'm going to have in front of you, you've got an action, a recommended action. Along with that, you've got a little bit of classwork to do here. I'm going to give you some concrete samples, and you're going to look at them and hopefully give me some feedback on a preferred color for the concrete. And then we'll talk about next steps. So the project timeline, I came to the commission in May and basically gave you guys a schedule that looks a little bit like this, giving you kind of a heads up that we're going to be working on this project, kind of a re-kickoff. In June, the commission saw the 35% design. You guys gave me feedback on that. June 27th, we had a monarch presentation, which was well attended by the public as well as city staff. Lots of good information about the existing habitat and potential for new habitat on the hill, as well as a site walk right after that. That was with a third-party professional that was recommended to the city. We brought them on board. They do lots of good monarch habitat work around the Bay Area and throughout California. They were well credentialed and it was well received. The July Commission, we brought you a design update and we talked specifically about an alignment at that point. After the alignment, after your feedback, we actually went out and put little flags out. So if you walk the hill since then, you'll see that the alignment for the ADA path is lined out with little flags. Here we are in September, so I'm going to walk you through the 90% design. We expect that we're going to complete the design this fall. We'd like to be able to advertise the design in the wintertime and get it ready to move forward in the early part of 2019. We expect the duration is going to be a while because you do need to do a tree removal phase. There is specific areas where we don't want to be on the hill, at least around trees where we have bird habitat. So we have to do a bird survey, and then, with those constraints, then we would move on into actually putting the work into place, the improvements. So this is the design around the Taft turnaround. The first drawing that you have in front of you is the demolition drawing. So this is the kind of the heaviest work on the hill, which is the demolition. The other areas will be much softer, but this area we're going to do some clearing and grubbing, which includes tree removals. So the little X's on here are 12 to 14 tree removals that we've identified. They're either going to be directly in the path, of the ADA ramp, or they're right around the Taft turnaround where we want to do some regrading to naturalize the site. We have just started talking to a couple native plant nurseries in the area where they're going to be propagating some seeds for us. So we're working with Margot to identify native plants that we want on the hill, and we'll be propagating those, and we'll have those ready so that they can go in after the work is complete. A lot of times with challenges with contractors, if you simply put the words on the page to a contract, a contractor will win the job, the contractor will perform the work, and the last thing he thinks about is where the plants are going to come from. And if they're not readily available, you don't get the plants that you wanted on the hill. So by doing this is a good effort from Margot and from others in the city to think about this ahead of time, put the plans in place. So this will be kind of one area that is actually going to be featured with native plants when we come to the end of the project. The other thing that I would point out on this is the little circles around the trees that will be protected. So we've identified specifically the trees that will not be, they're in the work area, but they will not be impacted by the work. So we'll put the tree fencing around those to protect those. This is a blow-up of the area specifically at Taft. So we've got ADA parking and a ramp that are going in. We've got several logs that are going in and a new set of stairs. So I don't think there's existing stairs there, but whatever remnants of stairs that are there, we're going to take those out and regrade those. So we're going to put in new stairs there leading to the Jackson area. We'll put a new bike rack in, and like I said before, we'll naturalize the topography. This is the summit trail that's coming from the, kind of following up to the summit. There is a post rail fence that's about 65 feet, so some of this area is going to be off to the right of the fire trail like we've talked about before, and there is a little bit of a steep drop off there. So where there is a steep drop off, we're going to put in a post rail fence there so people feel more comfortable using the trail. 65 feet is an estimate, might be more, it might be less. There's going to be 3 lookouts, little bulbs that people can pull off and rest and just enjoy the view. And again, we're going to have placed logs, those little black flags there you have in the diagram. This last part is the summit. So we've got the circular part here, which is the end of the ADA trail. We're calling it a plaza, which is just off and just past a stand of trees that were identified by the monarch expert to be protected. So we'll protect those in place. We'll put the little plaza just on the far side of those, on the south side of those. And then we'll actually have a little bit of an earthen trail just past that, so people can extend their walk, and if they want to turn around and follow the fire trail back, they can do that. That's shown as a dotted line at the very bottom of the drawing. It's not ADA compliant. It's not intended to be. The slopes would have required a lot more cutting into the hill for that little extension. So instead of making it ADA compliant, we finished the circular path. Those folks who want to use the ADA path can turn around and go back. And this is just another feature. This is right around where the existing bench is on the other side of the fire road. And if you go a little bit further down, you can see the swing. So that's kind of the orientation. This is the Jackson entrance. So we've got aggregate paving here. Again, we've got steps. So we've got multiple steps going in either direction that essentially conform to the trail. We've added a bike rack, and we've also placed logs here. So this is another going to be a really nice entry part. We don't have areas here that we've identified yet for native plants, but that might be something that Margot and I talk about if that makes sense for this location. So fairly simple, improved entry into the park. Between these trails, we are identifying areas for essentially clearing and grubbing. So from Jackson to Taft, We have an additional 12 trees that we've identified that are essentially what we're calling leaners. We walked the trail with the fire department, and they identified these as trees of concern. They're not directly impacting the trail, but they're adjacent to the trail, and they're already leaning. So these are the areas. These are trees that are also. We would suggest that they don't need to come out, but this is an opportunity for us to clean up this part of the hill a little bit on that. And I mentioned the steps. So between Madison and Jackson, again, we'll do a little bit of clearing and grubbing, but we're not recommending any tree removals for that stretch, which is going to keep it naturalized the way it is. At Madison, I mentioned this before, but we'll take out the rail and we'll add bollards, so it's a little bit of a softer approach. We'll have a striped area on the pavement so that people have that transition period where they know that there's no parking, this is an approved parking area, and it provides access for folks who can still get to their driveway. We'll have a rail fence on the right-hand side. If you've been to the end of Madison, there's a sharp drop-off on the very right-hand side that has been problematic for the city. We're going to post a rail fence there so that it's a clear designation that stay on the trail, you're staying on the left side. So it protects visitors from kind of moving in that area. With the rail removed and the bollards there, you could walk right onto the trail. You don't have to go around anything to access that. So it'll be a really clean design. There's a small footbridge. There's a swale there now, so we're adding a footbridge to get across the swale. We're adding a turnpike, which is a little bit of an elevated walkway. It gets people above the kind of the muddy areas. And I mentioned the no parking sign already. I believe I showed you this diagram before. This aerial map is a mock-up that our Monarch expert provided to us. The two yellow circular areas are identified monarch habitat. The little X's in there are where monarchs were actually counted. So these are the areas that would be most impacted if we were going to work in this area. So the Summit Trail reaches right up to the very top where that little arrow is. So we've identified those trees that should not be impacted and that need to be protected. The little dots that don't have any indication or that aren't in the circles, those were observed, but no monarchs were observed in that habitat, in that area. So all of the monarch habitat is essentially south of where our work is going to be. I think the last time I was here, we talked a little bit about the Taft steps. That element of the project is being removed from the project because it's not on city property. And then a little bit, I mentioned this before, but just to highlight the tree protection. So we've got trees near the summit area that will not be disturbed. We're going to protect those. We'll have an owner representative. Restoration Design Group is walking us through. They prepared these design drawings for us, and we're going to be talking to them about them staying on during the construction phase as the owner representative. So they'll be the one overseeing all of this protective work that we're putting onto the drawings. And then the limits of the work is the little dotted line. So that's where we expect the workers to remain. Any equipment is going to stay within that dotted line. So we don't need any of the workers to go beyond that. So we won't necessarily fence off all of that area because we can control the site without a lot of fencing. But we won't have the workers going off on other areas of the project. The fire road we're going to try to keep open as much as possible during construction. But when we do need to get in there and we are going to be moving equipment in and out, we'll make sure that we're protective of the community and we'll keep the workers in the community separate. We'll put up some temporary fencing as necessary. I can take questions now, or we can go on to the...
I think that's good. If we can take some questions from the commission.
On any of the stairs, is there the possibility to put handrails last time when I was on the hill with my 3-year-old, it got really slippery from all the eucalyptus leaves, and she fell a bunch of times. And so I was just curious for people who aren't as sure of foot if that was something that could be incorporated.
Yes, it's a different design element. So you go into parks and sometimes you see them and sometimes you don't. It doesn't protect you between the stairs. So that's right. Any young child, you know how slippery those leaves can be. So we can certainly look at that. I don't have a problem putting in rails on steps, but that's a different design approach than we've had up until this point.
I know, I just, this last time I was like, I'm going to take you this time, and it didn't go well. So.
Well, yeah, I remember back when I was learning about these kind of design concepts, you don't always put rails in, even in those areas where you're not 100% safe, you're just kind of on the edge of safety.
Yeah, I guess because we hadn't explored it and I know we're getting so close to things, I just wanted to bring it up as a potential option.
Okay.
If other people feel like that might be helpful. If not, then I'll just, my kid will fall.
She won't be the only one.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yep. This is probably getting too far down the line, but I guess I'm just curious. When you provide these to to construction and put it out to bid, will the staging area just be that top parking lot, and will all the refueling happen there? I'm just curious about equipment on the hill and the potential for spills and how you guys are.
Yeah, I'll work with the fire department to see if any of that area in the circle can be designated as staging area. The city doesn't have a lot of property to identify specifically a staging area, so we generally allow contractors to stage on the street where it's safe. So we'll work with them so that they only bring the materials that they are going to use on site for the day, and then it'll be a matter of where they stage their equipment. So it could be that they put some of the equipment on the street. We may find some areas at the bottom of the hill. We may find some areas on the trail if we can make sure that they're secured. It's a good question.
And the refueling would be on the street surface, right?
Well, sometimes the refueling is just in their yard. It's not necessarily, we can restrict it so it's not on the hill. If we can certainly do that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. If we look at in particular, the Taft entrance, I think I've asked this before, and I hate to ask again, but where would garbage cans go? Because when I go up there, one of the overwhelming impressions is, oh, look at all that trash.
Yeah, that was one of my comments back to RDG. So this is the 90% design set. So myself, Mark, and a few other people, Margot and a few other people in the city are collecting comments. So that's probably something that we need to talk about. I provided that feedback to them at 35%. It may be that they just felt it was a little crowded, but it could be that, like on the north side, there's a couple logs that are laid out kind of west of the bike rack. That might be a natural place for us to put some garbage cans. Maybe the big bellies are too big, but again, that's a design element. There's no right answer here. So if that's what we want, we simply make room for it.
And I would err more on the side of maybe 2 places for trash cans rather than 1.
If that, I mean, there's been studies that show that people who litter just litter, period. So if maybe, I just don't, in terms of the maintenance for trash cans all the way up there, I don't know, Shelley, if your
Already
staff does that? There are already staff trash cans up there?
It's Public Works.
Yeah, that's Public
There's
Works.
an old can there currently.
And it's always full.
It's always full. Anyway, working with Public Works in San Francisco, I know that it wasn't always correlated to having trash. Whether or not people littered wasn't always related to the trash cans being there, so I just don't want to create more work for Public Works if they're already up there. I don't know. It's just something to consider, pack in and pack it out, and having the trash cans be at the street level so they see that's where you're supposed to put it. And then it could be one of those things in terms of design that it's just an option for later if we find that litter increases by not having the trash cans there.
Right.
you know, you can even imagine how a trash can would actually attract more litter, because people are like, oh, there's a trash can, I'll just put it right by. Anyway, so just to think about that, because I don't want to create more work and more litter for the staff if maybe a different option is.
What we can do is I can follow up with the superintendent. I've had one conversation with him already about this. I don't anticipate an issue, but I'll have a discussion with him, and we can put it on the design drawings as a place.
Yeah.
And think about whether we want to add it between now and 100% or further down the road. We can certainly look at those
as an
both of those
option
options.
later on if we decide, right? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, the part of my question was, when citing that, do it in a way that's it's easy for them to access to clear it. That's
Right. The other thing that I did not mention, we talked about this beforehand. One of our neighbors is here to talk, that he mentioned bird boxes. So birds like snags, birds like dead limbs and dead trees to habitate in. So one of the things that, if we are removing a lot of trees, one of the things we can do is put bird boxes on the ground. I'm digging into the weeds of the technical specifications now, so I'll be looking for those, and if they're not there, we'll add them between 90 and 100%. So I don't want to forget that that was discussed before, and it's not on the drawings, but it may very well be already in the specifications.
Would the bird boxes be some sort of a temporary measure until the new trees are planted, or is it just another place for food for trees?
Yeah, I think it's just another place that can remain in place. I don't think it's a risk to leave it there.
Yeah, okay.
My sense is that we're cleaning things up. We're getting rid of the snags and dead wood, and we're going to continue keeping it that way, so we need to provide an alternative. That's what the bird box, that was kind of my impression.
Yeah, for the most part, we're looking at least opportunities to control fuel. So if the fire department were here, I don't see them, but they would say in every opportunity that the Albany Hill in general needs a vegetation management plan that controls fuel. Right, we're working with the private landowners to remind them that they need to remove fuel, so we need to show a good example of that as well. So 24 trees on this project isn't a lot of trees relative to the number of trees on the hill. 12 of those are required, to put in the trails. The other 12 were deemed to be, kind of at risk anyway.
So for the replanting that'll happen, I understand that the goal is for it to be mostly native, and I totally support that. One question I have, and it's been a few months, unfortunately, since I read through Stu Weiss's, is it Weiss?
Correct.
Report, and then also the Albany Hill plan. But is there a plan to replant and replenish the eucalyptus canopy as the trees kind of age out? And is there a possibility of replanting a few, I can't believe I'm saying that, young eucalyptus that might provide structure for monarchs in the future?
So there's really there's two schools of thought here, and I don't know if the commission has come down on one side or the other. One is you remove a eucalyptus, you give an opportunity for an oak or another part of the understory to take that place. So they find sunlight and they'll propagate themselves. So we don't think that if you take out an eucalyptus, you don't actually have to jump in and plant a tree. You're going to find growth there regardless. The other option, the other school of thought is to plant eucalyptus proactively to encourage habitat. I have not put myself into one of those camps. If John wants to speak one way or the other, he certainly is welcome to. But right now, there's no plans to plant eucalyptus on the hill.
Are there observations of monarchs that cluster in eucalyptus? I mean, in oaks? I know that they're in Monterey pine and some other trees, but some of the native understory are no longer used by them, I believe.
I would have to find that out. I'm not a monarch guy, sorry.
Okay.
One of the elements that we did have in Stu's contract, Mr. Weiss's contract, was to look at areas where if you took down a couple trees, are there areas that you can enhance habitat? So like I think the cornerstone of the monarch habitat is they look for a particular temperature range, wind protection, and sun. So if you have those three elements, then you tend to invite monarchs to stay and habitate. So if you can do that, I think Mr. Weiss was actually, one of his things that he needs to come back and do for us is walk the site and identify specific trees that if they were taken down, habitat could be created. So not necessarily planting, but habitat creation could be something that we look at in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? And so is it appropriate, do you have more, can we invite public comment at this point?
I think that's fine.
Okay, great. So, yes, please.
Hi, Carol. Carol Fitzgerald with Friends of Albany Hill. Okay. So, interesting, I feel like I'm on a different planet. Because Stu told me not to let any eucalyptus trees be taken down south of the turnaround. And he said that on the day that we had the sidewalk. So here we talk about 12 to 14 coming down, which is interesting. So you need to have him come in and give a presentation, I think. Secondly, it's, so that's my thing about Trev, just sit for an hour and listen to us carefully protect a street tree with all the care and all, but when we get up to the forest, it's like the trees are not individual, they're a group. So I guess my recommendation is that you being the Park and Rec Commission, get Stu in and ask him some questions and do a presentation for you. Secondly, I'm very concerned about using concrete for the ADA trail, and again, we just watched what tree roots have done to eucalyptus along our sidewalks. That's a continual problem in Albany. And here we're going to put concrete up in a forest. I still think you need to look at a new surface for the ADA trail, even if you have to go to a boardwalk or you know, to me it's a major thing that is not being addressed yet, is the material on that trail and the trees. So I'm going to kind of I guess that's all I'm going to say about it now, but I'm very concerned about the report that Robert just gave, even though I've given him tons of input and time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just one more. You know, we're not protecting just roosting trees. It's a habitat and they move around. So you really want to get a lot more information on the protection. I just signed the Sierra Club's petition to put the monarchs on the endangered species list, so that's all going on, and we need to really take our wintering site here serious, above a lot of other things that we might want.
Thank you. Any other questions or any other comments? Please.
My name is Ralph Pericoli. This is actually a question for Robert. I didn't hear that you mentioned about bike racks at the end of Madison Street. Will there be one there as well?
I'll double check the drawing. I have to look at it. I'm not 100% sure if I saw a bike rack.
Okay, because that was one of my original recommendations.
And it's the lowest point.
Yeah, it's the lowest point, easiest access, and then the other two are kind of piggybacked on top of that. So.
Yeah, we can add that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do see a bike rack at Madison.
Just hearing mention of bike racks, I don't know what the funding source is, but just want to let you know Albany Strollers and Rollers is happy to contribute to bike racks wherever they are. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we bring it back to the commission for discussion or questions.
So what are we looking for from us tonight? Just feedback?
Robert, if you could just let us know what you're hoping to hear from us.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of the agenda in front of me, but I think I put some proposed language in
It
there.
said that the commission discuss and provide feedback on the concepts and direct staff to move forward with communications.
That's the mountain.
Oh, sorry. Okay. That the commission recommend a pavement color for the ADA path and recommend the project for public bid.
Before we do that, do you want me to address any of the issues that we heard from the public?
I would.
Okay, fair enough. So we are under contract with Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weiss has a copy of the 90% drawings. I went back and forth with email with him today, and he's reviewing those as we speak. So I will be very clear with him to get an understanding of what he meant, either by talking to me or by talking to members of the public, anybody from the public, what he told Carol or anybody else about tree protection. So I don't understand that comment. My understanding was that the monarch habitat was south of the summit. If Carol took that as anything south of the turnaround, which is the paved area where you park, that's an entirely different understanding of what Mr. Weiss has been talking to me about. And I'll go back to his report and confirm what that says as well. And in terms of concrete, this is the second time we've had this discussion. I'm more than happy to reopen it, but there are other material selections. There are other varieties of materials besides concrete. When we looked at it, we asked Restoration Design Group to look at this issue specifically, because they're the professionals. They do this day in and day out. They work on park properties all over the state, and they know these materials backwards and forwards. So we gave them specific criteria: erosion resistance, durability, context sensitivity, which is it is in a park, permeability, and cost effectiveness. When ranked out, concrete is the second from the bottom, and it identifies as high or medium in all of those areas with low permeability. So it ranks very, very well, and it is quite cost effective. Once you put it in, it's very easy to maintain. Is it susceptible to tree roots? Yes. If you put a liquid amber right next to it, it can lift up. What we're doing is we're putting in a very nice, stable concrete surface, 4 inches of concrete with rebar, and we're removing the trees that are adjacent to the path. So we're giving the path room so it isn't impacted by trees and by tree roots. The colors, and you will look at the colors and you'll see that they can be blended with the surfaces. Some people don't like concrete, period, no matter what the color is, but other people have seen concrete in parks before. I think I had a picture here. This is Tilden Park. I mean, this is right up against an ADA park, an ADA parking space with some facilities, and it's an AC surface. So depending on where you go, you see different surfaces on parks. So this isn't an area where it's not unprecedented to put down concrete. There are other materials. If you guys want me to, I can certainly back up and think about other materials. It just means that I have to use different criteria to settle this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not clear. I mean, thank you for that offer,
Sure.
because the one thing I would wonder is those criteria. I mean, I'm sure you've been in discussion, but I don't know. It's not clear to me that it's about how close it is to a tree root and that kind of thing. So maybe you have that in your mind, but I'm wondering if that person who did that evaluation was really looking specifically at that and the proximity to, I guess that's kind of the context specific, but it would be nice to sort of be sure.
That's a fair question. So the project manager at Restoration Design Group is the person who led the effort in putting the drawings together.
Okay.
I've had several meetings with him on site, and I specifically talked to him about creating this matrix. So he understands the design-specific elements of Albany Hill, as well as the issues around tree roots. Any of these other materials, you put a tree next to it, it's going to have the same uplifting challenges. There's nothing magical about degraded granite that protects it against uplift. You would have to do regular maintenance on any material you'll put down there if you have a tree next to it. With this path, we're going to move the trees away.
Did I
Right, no,
answer
but
your
one question, right, but one question I would have is like degraded granite might, although you might have to do more maintenance, it may be more flexible, right? Because with concrete, you really just have to you have to fix that concrete. So I guess the long-term maintenance cost, I don't know.
So the flexibility, you're exactly right. It will give. So you'll have a little bit of opportunity to go back in there and do something. But this is an ADA path. So there's an issue of compliance, of making sure that we meet slopes.
Right.
So if it gives to a point where it's above a certain percentage slope, we're going in there and repairing it anyway.
Okay.
No, and the idea of a boardwalk was brought up, and it's not on the matrix. And was that something we considered at some point? I remember the matrix, I vaguely remember the discussion, but I don't remember bringing up a boardwalk.
The boardwalk was not talked specifically about this area. We had the turnpike down on Madison, and I can ask that question specifically to RDG and have them give us a response.
It just occurs to me that if, I know the boardwalks can go much closer to trees and not risk uplift. Maybe we don't have to remove so many trees, we have a boardwalk. I don't know. It's a possibility.
Yeah, it's just.
I can also imagine being significant maintenance on the boardwalk as well to keep it compliant.
I will ask.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank
Sure.
Any other questions?
Okay. Interactive portion, concrete colors. All right. Soil. Each of these has a name on the side: sandstone, flagstone brown, and San Diego buff. So with 4 of you here, we'll see how fast you guys can.
You go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'll do it first.
Fortunately, Albany Hill is fluorescently lit, so this is a perfect environment for judging.
Did the designer have any preferences? Just curious.
The designer really wanted to defer to us. He's done this several times in several different locations. If he was here, he would probably say that he likes all of those.
Well, I think we should say the same.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments
Well,
about the
I would
color?
comment that we've just raised the question of whether we want to use concrete or not. I'm hesitant to provide this information because it kind of suggests that we endorse using concrete automatically. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's kind of.
It's premature at this point. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. If we're going to come back and hear that specific issue about the material type.
Okay, so let me think through this a little bit. We're going to issue a categorical exemption for the project, and that can go kind of separately from any action we take here. Do you want to delay an action, have us come back with some answers before we go?
Do you have an idea, Todd, of what you're thinking? First of all, when was this scheduled to happen? Or you wanted to, yeah.
Months ago.
Did you already have the bid for this work? I'm just curious.
No,
Okay.
this bid, from here, council needs to look at the drawings and approve bids.
Okay.
Then it can go out for advertising. It takes about a month to advertise, and then it can go to council again for approval of the bids. So we're probably looking into November and December or January before it's approved for construction.
Okay.
And it is a material issue. Depending on what we decide, what's best for the project, it can affect the construction cost.
So before we discuss that, I pulled up the report from Dr. Stu Weissman and just wanted to read the sections about the trees because that seemed like something that was brought up. So this is under site suitability on page 22. The cluster sites are particularly dependent on an intact canopy to the south, southwest, and west to shelter from winds. The hill itself and trees on it provide shelter from the southeast. There are a few very important trees, VITs, which disproportionately contribute to habitat suitability. One of the largest trees in particular, which they've noted, provides key wind protection for monarch clustering on the northern opening, and then there's a map of that elsewhere. The areas north of the summit around the road turnaround and on the west slope and north slope appear to have too dense of canopies with low insulation and are not attractive to large numbers of monarchs. Individual monarchs, but no large clusters, have been noted in these areas. We suggest consideration of creating appropriately sized canopy gaps by selective tree removal to let in more insulation while maintaining wind shelter, but no specific sites and configurations can be detailed at this time. So I just want to go and find the very important tree and make sure that that's not one of the, I imagine it's not one of the trees that was selected for removal, but that one in maps 8 and 9 seem to be ones that should definitely not be removed. So I pulled up map 8. It's hard for me to tell which tree that is because it's kind of next to two different trees.
The very important tree, as I understand it, is actually on private property, on the 11-acre property.
It is, yeah, right next to, I think, some clusters, or actually a tree that has clusters, so then it wouldn't be one that's removed.
The trees between the Taft turnaround and the summit, mostly, there are a few actually that are not on this map that monarchs did cluster on, and they haven't been marked on here, but on the designs, they're not going to be taken out.
So I'm not sure if that provided some, it seems like he's vague, but that some of the areas near the turnaround, he was recommending that there be some selective tree removal.
Yes, and that's why we wanted to have him come out and do surveys of that area and actually see if there's some other trees that can be taken out too, because the monarchs, they like some sunny areas to fly in and to cluster. So another thing I wanted to address is you were talking about replacing eucalyptus with young eucalyptus. And that's actually something that Stu is saying in his report, is to leave the eucalyptus saplings in areas where they cluster, because those are going to be the trees that, after the old trees die and get taken out or fall, those young saplings are the ones that are going to grow up and the monarchs are going to need later on. So he was saying to leave those in the areas where they cluster, and that's what we plan on doing.
Thank you for
And another thing is, you were mentioning coast live oaks. I asked Stu, where did monarchs cluster before they were eucalyptus? And he said coast live oaks are one tree that they actually did cluster on, but for some reason now they like the eucalyptus better.
Maybe just time.
Yeah. And another thing I want to mention is the native plants that we're going to be putting in. They're native to the hill. We're collecting seed from the hill right now to propagate. And these plants, they're good not just for monarchs, but there are other butterflies on the hill. There's about over 100 species of moths and butterflies on the hill, and they like other plants as well. So we're looking after not just monarchs, but all wildlife.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions? So Robert, I guess back to you about the comments that you need. I guess we have a couple things, I guess, about the concrete material path potentially. Right. I think that's a good question. If there's something you can write about the refueling, I think, equipment, if there's something you can just put in the language there, or just some protocol to ask them not to refuel on the hill.
Yeah, in your BMPs.
Yes.
Was there any other comment by the commission?
I'm curious what we think we should do about the idea of of a boardwalk if we are really willing to hold things up for a month, investigate that and potentially longer. Is there any way we can discuss that in between meetings or something?
So if it's informational, I can certainly pass on information through Shelley. If I'm asking for action, then maybe it requires us coming back to the committee. Essentially, what I'm going to ask RDG is, one, is it viable? Two, how does it affect cost, long-term life of the project cost, not just installation, but maintenance? And if they say that it's viable, then I can come back here and give essentially you guys some options. And for whatever reason they don't think it's viable, I can get that information back to Shelley and recommend that we simply proceed to council if that works. I mean, it's at your disposal at this point.
Do we then want to provide a color choice? In the interest that it comes back, say, oh, it's just not practical here, can't do it here, or
Sure. I think that's a good idea, just to speed up that process. I'm very open, so does anybody have a preference?
San Diego buff.
San Diego buff.
I'm a San Diegan. No.
San Diego buff.
Yeah, I think that's the most natural and color in the medium of the spectrum. And the reddish one, if you imagine a lot of eucalyptus leaves on it that are pretty reddish, I thought the pathway might be. Yeah, I thought this one might be a little bit better because this is kind of reddish.
I was going to say anyone but the red one, so.
Yes, this is the San Diego buff. It's like the middle one.
I can provide, Stu was the question was whether I consulted with Stu about the color of the concrete. Stu's comment to us was he recommends a low glare concrete, one, so it's not glaring, and then two, to keep the temperature down. If this was an area where there was a lot of concrete can absorb heat and then it can change the temperature. I'll ask that question specifically to him and giving him, I guess I can send him a picture of the color and get that feedback. So I'll do that.
Okay.
I didn't know the color until just now.
Great. Okay, so we have a color potentially, but I'm wondering about, I don't know if we're so clear about the mid-step. You're going to get some more information. You can provide that to Shelley, and then I'm just wondering about it coming back here.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think if the information is, oh, we can't do it here, and some reasons, then I think it goes on. If it is come back, well, that is a possibility, and here are some options, then it would need to come back. That's my sense.
I feel like will probably come back and be a possibility, so I think I would suggest for an open public process that we plan to talk about it. I'm sorry. I do think it's a big expense and a permanent choice
Correct.
that we're making, so I would like to, one of the only infrastructural, anyway, so yes, if we could bring it back to the commission. Thank you.
And also, when you do talk to Stu about the concrete, and then you said you'd passed along the 90% to him, so any comments he had would be interesting to.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so thank you, Robert, for your
much.
work on this.
You're welcome. It's looking great.
Okay. Next item is the mountain bike park concept plan.
Yes, we have Alex Fowler from Action Sports Construction who provided the concept design for you this evening. He's going to walk us through that.
Hi, Council. Thank you for having me today. My name is Alex Fowler. I'm the owner of Action Sports Construction. I'm here to go over this conceptual rendering of a mountain bike park for here in Albany. And I just want to say I grew up riding my bike all over Albany, and we spent most of our time hanging out in Solano Cyclery and watching bike videos, and that was because we didn't have anywhere to go ride. So I'm really adamant about presenting this concept of hopefully getting a bike park put here in town. We have been looking at a plot of land underneath the 580, 880 interchange. And we think it's a really good site for a bike park. It's a really underutilized bit of land that's owned by Caltrans. And there's no trees there. So that's a plus. Oh, come on. Yeah, give me I just sat through an hour and a half of trees. Come on. And so it's basically, it's a otherwise unusable bit of land. And so we can turn it into a really beneficial bit of bike park for kids. So basically, the way that the way that kids entertain themselves is always evolving. And you don't really see kids playing basketball or jump rope or jumping jacks as much as they are skateboarding and other stuff now. And so basically we would like to get a bike park here in town. And I've done some other projects in there and utilizing some of the local resources that I have here. I think we can get it done for substantially cheaper than otherwise. So I guess I'll start by walking you guys through the initial design. Basically in the middle is what is called a pump track, and those are a really new, just fun way to ride a bike. It's a series of bank turns and rollers that you use to generate speed through pumping, not through pedaling. So similar to how you gain momentum in like a skate park, like a skateboarder in a skate park. Why these are the benefit of putting this in is basically bikes aren't allowed in skate parks. I remember when the Berkeley skate park opened, I was really excited. I was like 14. We couldn't go ride. So there's currently 3,500 skateboard parks in the United States and only about a couple hundred bike parks, but that's very rapidly increasing. We recently put one in actually the largest one in the country is down San Jose, which we built. And so I think it's just a really good opportunity for Albany to sort of jump on board with this. So we have a pump track in the middle, and then there is a mountain bike skills loop that goes around the perimeter of that. And the reason we have that there, it's just sort of to replicate the mountain bike environment, the features that you would see when you're out mountain biking on Mount Tam or something like that. So just sort of replicating that in an urban environment. And so, yeah. Are there any questions? Where would you like me to go from here?
I'm trying to get in my head where, how it's laid out on the site.
Let's go, you could scroll down a little bit further. There's there should be, well, no, I don't see anything there. There should be, basically I have like bubbles with pictures that describe or that depict each feature. So there it is. So there's specific features in here.
iPad died, that's why I'm having a hard time.
No worries. So you see in the middle the bubble on what is your right-hand side. That's what a typical pump track looks like. There's a lot of them. It has an asphalt surface, dry wells to take care of the water, and then above that there's kid riding on a log, rock garden. There's a bunch of various features. There's also some prefabricated features down at the bottom that we would purchase from a company called American Ramp Company. They're out in Missouri or wherever, but they specialize in selling these features. So we would help with the install of that and stuff. We're very experienced with that.
It looks really cool. I was actually talking more about how it fits on the site under the freeway. Is this going right up to the train tracks and then all the way over?
No. Actually, I kind of, how do I, Shelley, if you could assist me with that.
The vocabulary is very challenging here.
So this is the site off Cleveland, not under the Buchanan overpass. So it's lower Pierce Street Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it has basically the really, really high overpass.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really pushed down towards the fence line at Cleveland and along the slope from Pierce Street Park, and it creates like a little triangle. It's not up underneath where you are on that ledge.
No, I
right
understand.
tucked underneath.
Yeah,
And I'll show a map in a second when when Alex is done.
Okay.
I'll pull something up.
Yeah, if we could go back to the top of the presentation. So why this a little bit further up?
Yeah.
So why this project would be so unique is the examples I provided are from a bike park in Seattle, and it's directly underneath a freeway as well. So this has been proven to be very effective in utilizing what is otherwise unusable space. I can't think of any other things that you'd really want to put there. So it would really just activate the area. So here are some photo examples of a similar bike park, and so this is essentially what we would like to bring here.
Got it.
I have a couple questions. Well, first of all, is in your experience, is the size and shape of this lot pretty standard?
Yeah. So what's unique about what I do is there is no standard size. We can really fit these things anywhere. I've done tracks as small as 15 by 20 feet and as large as, football arenas. So really we can fit them anywhere. And what the fun part of my job and sort of the artistry is in making them fit in very unique areas. So we can actually work around what parameters are existing parameters rather than restructuring what's there, if that makes sense. So they can really just fit in anywhere.
And well, once Shelley maybe shows, I wanted to go back. I had a question about some of the pictures. Yeah, so if you go back to that picture with the bubbles, that one. I'm just wondering, this looks really interesting. I do notice though in the pictures, they look like they're like that one picture of the pump track area to the very right.
Yes.
Looks like it's almost the whole park is in that sort of design. And this looks like there's a bunch of different elements going on. And so
that photo is just of an overhead of a specific pump track that's just being used as an example. They can really, like I said, they can come in a variety of shapes and sizes. And so the reason why I picked a pump track as well as a mountain bike skill zone specifically for this area is a pump track requires a very flat area, which it has. And then the surrounding perimeter, it's kind of hard to tell with this rendering, but the surrounding perimeter is otherwise really just unusable space. It has a lot of ups and downs, and so I think it's really good for replicating that environment. But yeah, a pump track is usually just a small part. Let me rephrase that. It could be the entire park could be a pump track, or it could just be one feature or one element. And there's definitely enough room to do both.
Great. And wondering about your design process, like if it's great that you're from Albany and you're local, just wondering if it was really participatory, like if you were talking with the sponsor about just what elements that group would like to see.
We worked with the mountain bike club, the Albany High School mountain bike team, and they've been having to travel really far to go and practice and hone their skills before they go to contests and races. So they were very interested in being able to practice and train locally as opposed to.
Sure. No, I mean in terms of the design though. You had some sort of feedback on the design from the group, the mountain biking group?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
We've met, I think, 3 times. Mr.
Yeah. No, we've met several
Part
times.
of those, and then we've actually had Commissioner Martin has attended a few of those meetings as well.
Great.
And then we most recently had a meeting on site. And we had a number of people from we had a strollers and rollers representative and a bike shop representative, and then Mr. Russell and a couple other people.
Any other questions?
You provide 2 options, the asphalt and then also the soil stabilizer application. I guess I was just wondering if you could run us through kind of the differences or pros and cons of those.
So essentially what I've provided is just a cost estimate for there's always, multiple options on how to do this. And so with the asphalt surface, it's sort of a one and done. There's basically maintenance free. And then when you use fill material and use a soil stabilizer additive, it has a shelf life. And so it's really just about accommodating specific projects budgets. So you sort of give different surface like option, riding surface
So
options.
like if you were to fall against asphalt versus the soil stabilizer, is one of them, I imagine.
They both hurt.
They both hurt. The likelihood of like breaking something.
No, they both really hurt.
And then how many people can use the park at a given time, a park this?
So a park like this, I would estimate anywhere from 20 to 30 could be used it comfortably. But like I said, we recently did a project for the city of Capitola down in Santa Cruz, and they counted, they actually want to expand because they counted 60 kids trying to use it at one time. It was so popular. And the grand opening event had like 120 people attend, and and it was raised privately. The funding was raised privately, and the city built a tennis court, and they had 5 people show up. They were really disappointed in that. That's where they spent their money, and now they're diverting funding from other sports into cycling.
Yeah. No, this is exciting. We've been waiting to hear about this for a while. I guess a question that would be for you guys, but maybe would be addressed at a later phase is again, the question that was brought up earlier about like city liability and kind of how, if there would be any barrier to people kind of, using the park.
Alex can answer this also, but there's a sign, there's signage that if you use this, it's using at your own risk. That's usually the signage that appears in these types of parks and skateboard parks. And I've sent that question to the city attorney too. What additional language would the city add to that? But it is one of those signs that's used at your own risk.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Just curious about your opinion between the two types of materials, just from, if you didn't think about cost, what would you?
I go asphalt all the way, just in that from a safety standpoint. So if you use a dirt surface, it does require upkeep and maintenance, and we do have maintenance contracts with various cities. But if we build it and it's not properly maintained, it gets a fine silt on the surface, which gets slippery. So I do understand that the asphalt surface seems a little more daunting, but it's actually safer in that your bike actually maintains better traction.
Yeah, that project different. That's not.
Sorry, and that would just be on the pump track, not the perimeter, the mountain bike perimeter trail. That would be dirt.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But this estimate is 65 is for everything, right?
Yes.
Fully built out.
Fully built out.
Okay. And I'm sure the council will have those questions, but it's good to let them know.
Yeah. Well, it's just to give you guys, so you can see. What
Right.
goes
No,
into
it's great.
building
Thank
these
you.
things.
Yep.
Where do you see the entrance? Is it the decomposed granite plaza would be like the entrance, or?
Yeah, that would be an entrance down off Cleveland Avenue.
Okay.
Lots of parking.
Got it, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, there's parking there, Shelley?
Yes.
There's street parking.
Yeah.
It's wide enough, yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind me going to the map for a second. Some exciting parts of this as you guys are considering us moving forward. This is basically the area right in here that we're talking about.
We're not talking about where there had been a plan to put the city yard, right?
Correct.
We're not talking about that, we're
It's
talking about.
lower, yes, it's right off Cleveland. Right now, it just has a fence, and it's, the nice part about it is it's the really high overpass, and it actually
Right.
provides a lot of cover from rain in that section. The city is working through an affordable housing project that is
Right.
this corner of city property. And I bring that up for 2 reasons. One, I've met with the community development director about this, that their other project is that they're going to incorporate that bike path that will come through the park and also come down near that project, the affordable housing project, and they will work to include a little
Dog leg or something.
little thing off, to get to the bike park. There will also be some, I can't say how far the sidewalk will go, but this will be new sidewalk on Cleveland that will be part of that project. And the other wonderful thing is something Alex is probably the only person that will get excited when I say this, is they're going to take a lot of dirt out of that area. And they're more than willing to give us the dirt that would be needed for a mountain bike park.
Any other questions? So I guess it's time for public comments, if there's any.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. And as Mr. Russell comes up, I just want to, tonight, Alex's task was a concept, just to give us an idea, a cost. Doesn't mean that it's happening tomorrow and this is the final details of it. If we continue to move on and we get a green light at some point, then there'll be a full design process. Okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm Jim Russell. I've come here to talk about this topic before. I really want to thank the city that has allowed us to get this far and to provide the seed funding for the design. I want to thank Action Sports Construction for the really amazing design and the great work that's been done so far, and everyone else that's been involved in it. There has been a lot of excitement among team members and volunteers involved with the mountain bike team. So we're definitely providing input to the design. And but we're also making sure that it's going to be fun for everybody that wants to ride it. It's not just for the mountain bike team, but I think there's something there for everybody. And it would turn what's now a really sad, depressing, blighted location in Albany into, a location with people having fun and laughing and getting exercise. So I think it's hard to beat it. So anyways, I really encourage that we move this forward and begin discussion with Caltrans. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm just super excited about this project. As a mountain biker, some of you may know me mostly as Strollers and Rollers, which is on the road, but actually my passion is mountain biking. So I'm very grateful that this has moved forward at the speed it has. I never rated that would happen, so I appreciate your open-mindedness. To the asphalt versus dirt, I rode some bowls in McLaren Park in San Francisco, which were stabilized dirt, and yeah, I got sliced up pretty good. I mean, I had a great time, but that when the dirt wears away, the rocks are sticking out, so it can actually make more of a dragon's tooth than you would get with the asphalt. So again, I had a blast, but Strollers and Rollers is interested in donating money to help with this project. We don't know how much yet, but we have the happy problem of having a surfeit of funding, not $65,000, but we have funding. And I remember a conversation with Susan Schwartz, who is the president of Friends of Five Creeks. And Margot may be able to comment on this, because I know there's been some what's called free riding on Albany Hill. I don't know if that's going on still. And she always has such a great perspective. She's like, she didn't really have animus towards the people who were doing that, who were tearing up the hill. She's like, they want a place to play, and this could be the start of that place that kind of draws them away from the hill. And if it's successful, it could expand from here, because this really only uses a pretty small portion of that area. So in some sense, you could look at that. It's expensive, but you could look at it as a pilot, and it could get bigger from here if it works out, if we do our work well. So, and I know at least myself and one other person from Strollers and Rollers is interested in doing maintenance. I haven't really pushed it yet, but I imagine there's other people in Strollers and Rollers who would like to get involved in that. So thanks so much. Hope it goes forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Preston. Yes, there are 3 areas at least on Albany Hill where kids have dug out their own ramps. And I mean, it looks like a lot of fun, but unfortunately it's been damaging to plants and the hillside. So I think this is a great idea. I'm a bicyclist myself, and I think kids need a place to play to do this kind of thing without going to Albany Hill and messing up Albany Hill. So I fully support it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hello, my name is Andrew Tang. I am a resident of Albany, and I'm an assistant coach with the Albany High mountain bike team. And before I say any more, I want to say thank you to the Park and Rec Commission for considering this project, and thank you to the staff for all your hard work in moving this along. I think this is a great asset to the community. It would be a wonderful place for kids in Albany to go and have some good, healthy fun, have some get outdoors, and an alternative to more sedentary activities that people might be doing nowadays. I can say that the Albany High mountain biking team is constantly looking for places to work on bike skills, and we ride to all sorts of different locations. Sometimes we just build our own by putting logs and rocks out and jumping over them. If this facility were available, I am sure that this would be a place that we would go to work on bicycle skills. So at least the Albany High team will be using it regularly. I can't say about people in general, but I wouldn't not be surprised if this park would become an incredibly attractive asset to kids of all ages in Albany. So I urge you to please move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
And if I just want to bring up that there were a few comments that were included in your packet, and then today I received other comments, and those were added, just so you're aware.
Yep. Thank you. And just for the record, those were comments in support of the mountain bike park. Okay, so bring it back, I guess, at this point for discussion.
The question I had is Caltrans. We haven't talked to Caltrans about this yet, or I thought.
That's the recommendation, right?
Yes.
Just pose the idea. It seems like we. Yeah.
A different location was posed for a different scenario. And working with Justin, we have a new transportation manager for the city of Albany. His name is Justin. So he and I have been working together. He sent a feeler email to them. Again, we did this concept so that we would have more information that we can provide, and they're going to be requesting a number of items for them to give us a more solid, not maybe a yes or no, but direction.
And this is their land. This is Caltrans land.
Yes.
And the other proposal was for a totally different piece of property. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
A little bit of a jumping the gun, pardon the saying, but it was talking about a dog area under the Buchanan overpass, and we weren't even there yet. But
that piece of land was considered also as an option for this park? Okay.
Yes, Ms. Russell and Alex and I walked the two different sites, and Jim felt that the site we picked is better. And it's less noise. It's not as noisy as under the freeway. And the nice part about it is the overpass is really high, and two of them come together and provides a nice cover for the area from rain.
Great. Any other questions or just comments?
And I'm also one of the school board appointed representatives on the commission, and Harriet usually is not here, always champions things that support the school district. So in her honor, I will also say this sounds like something that would really go a long way to supporting the local team. And it seems like it has a lot of other support. So it's pretty exciting.
Commissioner Patterson, she submitted a support letter on behalf too, so you know her. You know what she would do. Yeah.
Yeah, I also support it just generally from creating more diverse recreation options in Albany. And yeah, it looks really fun, and for many different ages that, a lot of our recreations for certain, anyway, so yes, I totally support. Any other comments?
I can't wait.
I want to be sure that, when we do asphalt, we get to choose the color. Back here.
Definitely.
I want to see some swatches.
Definitely. We'll bring in the color of the dirt, too. In this next steps, I would propose that when we get to future agenda items, what I will bring back is that Measure R amount, and I have some new information about that, but I wanted to wait to hear your direction from tonight. But those dollar amounts are on our guesstimate. We can use those as we're allocating Measure R funds, if this is going to be a candidate for those funds.
Great.
So
Thank you.
then do we need to do a motion for you to?
Yep.
Okay.
So, right. Do you want to do one?
Okay, well, I don't know. Is it an item? Do we need to?
It's really, again, it's not voting to approve the mountain bike park. It is saying, yes, we want to move forward with talking with Caltrans and developing a stronger plan. Any of this would obviously have to go to council. They would be involved in any of the final approvals. Okay. And we would also have a design that's more formalized.
Okay, so but our motion could carry it forward to the discussions with Caltrans. That doesn't have to go through council. Okay. Then we have a motion.
So then I motion that we move forward and start the further design phases and discussion with Caltrans.
Second. Yeah. All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Next item.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex.
Very exciting.
Street tree removal policy subcommittee. So just so you all know, you guys have seen this before. Gino and I worked on it for months, and then it kind of stalled because I thought, anyway, it doesn't matter, but now it's coming back, and it's in a very similar form to the last time it was before you. But I thought we should just try to knock it out and make a decision to recommend it to be submitted to council. So if you could pull that up and just look at the redlined comments.
Oh, what's the Wi-Fi password?
Excuse me?
Wi-Fi password, do you remember?
I got it earlier.
It's like, it's dinner with Albany or something, isn't it?
There, yeah.
Oh, I know. It's
Now you told
Oh,
me.
here.
I've got it.
So we can just, Shelley, you can jump in here at any time. I think you know this much better than I do. But I think some of the first changes were kind of minor,
My question was,
Oh, go ahead.
so for this policy, a city tree refers to a living tree, which I understand. That's the language that appears later. But if somebody says, oh, I thought the tree was dead.
Well, that's why we
Cut it
have
down.
an urban forestry report, right? That is
Well,
what you
no,
mean,
but if the policy doesn't even,
it wouldn't apply to a dead
Prefer.
tree.
pardon?
That would be the point, is that if the tree is dead, it doesn't, then this doesn't apply to it. That would be the discussion point on this.
Okay,
Well-
so that is something to discuss, is whether or not we want to
We
still
had this
see
co-
dead
We had
tree.
it come up, right? If a tree is determined that it's dead,
Well, I think if the urban forester determines the tree is
Right,
dead,
right.
that's no problem. It's the
Yeah.
property owner figuring
Oh,
the tree is dead and figuring I can just cut it down because the policy says it has to be a living tree.
Oh, so maybe we can be explicit.
That's why I like the idea of any tree.
Okay.
And then, because that calls for the urban forester to review it, and then it's dead, you can cut it down. I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying?
I get a lot of reports that I have a dead tree because the leaves are turning brown or something. and
It's just not.
Yeah, especially in the winter also.
we are going to come to a point in this where we're going to talk about that, I think. His evaluation,
I
a
just
person
did.
who fills out the application, and they say the tree should be removed because it's dead. And then he goes out and said, it's not dead.
I guess my question is sort of a more general question. So when does this policy not apply to a street tree?
Dead.
So.
I think you're just trying to catch it. Yeah, I get it. You
see what I'm
don't,
saying?
yeah,
So
you just.
Who determines this? So why would John even be called in if the policy says it's dead? Anyway,
It's just making sure there's no loopholes that.
I think it
where people
refers to every
can-
tree.
Right.
Every street tree.
Right, okay.
Living or not, and part of one of the things is if it's dead, you can cut it down. But at least it needs to be confirmed by the city urban forester.
So your request is to go back to the original language, which said refers to a tree on public property.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
I've only
shoot.
got like 2 notes. Don't worry about it.
I was going to say,
That's one
is this
of them.
supposed to
That's
be
one of
like
them.
all
And
night? But Shelley, how should we do this? Because there's many, right? There's many revisions. Maybe we can just take a pass through. We don't have to do motions at this point, right? We just take a pass through. I agree with Todd. I think that's fine to be more inclusive of, and just go back to to a tree on public property. But the second, maybe, does anybody have issue with the second change, which is Department of Public Works to Public Works Department? Okay.
Let's just carry through this, documents.
Sure. So then A, section 1A, may be removed without issuance of a city tree removal permit. Red tag. Shelley, can you explain that?
We've had a situation like this where a tree came down. It was determined to be, an emergency tree removal. Let's use that as example. But because it doesn't get tagged, because it doesn't go through this process, because he has to make a determination, and you're a neighbor and you're like, what? Why is a tree coming down? And they're not informed. So it was a discussion like, should John be asked to when he says, yes, this is coming down, while I'm calling the tree company to come for the emergency, either he puts a red tag on that tree so people know this is an emergency. It's really just a notification for neighbors to know that this is happening, that it didn't have to go through the 15-day posting because it met this criteria. So it's really a option for you or direction for John.
So would the red tag or some sort of notice that it came down as an emergency persist after the tree's removed? Because that sounds like it's like the intermittent, like between the call, but then afterwards, or like why, like if I work all day, so I wouldn't be there for that actual removal.
You mean like leave a sign, leave an A-frame there.
Leave some sort of sign that lets people know in case.
While you're away, your tree can.
Exactly.
Yes. So it was just added to kind of clarify that if that's something you're.
Let me just, so John, so I can see a situation where imminent failure, you've got to deal with this right away, or it's going to fall on someone, versus this tree is very sick, it needs to come out in the next month. The second case, I can see wrapping it and saying this tree is going to be removed in the next 2 or 3 weeks or something. The first case, you don't have time, right? There's not.
Yeah, if it's coming down, it's coming down right then. There's nothing to post, really.
Right.
But like the liquid amber that came up 801, what was it?
Right, the one that was dropping.
Drought, yeah. That might be something where the tree gets red tagged, it's obviously dead. And it sort of, didn't take much time for that one, but it takes up some time here.
So that would be the situation, I think, where red tag, where there is going to be, it's not the imminent emergency failure, but.
But is there ever a time when you go out and go, oh, this tree needs to come out, and it takes a day for the people to get out there, or it's 8 hours from?
There's that also, yeah.
It's just, I think it's like a neighbor notification.
Good idea, yeah.
I think it's a good idea, too. I feel like if it's just,
even if it's
more
just,
practical.
Just the A-frame after the fact, too, of what happened.
Yep.
Just improving, I guess, that communication.
So do we want some language here for this?
One thing that I did, I created an actual removal permit, and when I had the tree taken out on San Pablo, I gave the tree company the permit, so if there were questions, they could show that there's a document from the city saying that they were.
Because we had that come up too, didn't we? Yeah.
So is that something that you could then add to this, or is that something that would be internal that doesn't need to be expressly part of this policy?
It's true, it could just be procedural, like in terms of what he's doing, but it seems like the policy has been pretty detailed in terms of when you would be notified, and like the next step, that you are supposed to be notified within 60 days, you being the commissioners. So it seems pretty specific, but that's up to you in terms of how you would like that to move forward. If you want to give, we can just list a couple things that
so I guess
you will be tagged.
Well, the distinction I see, it's like how it comes to the commission versus how it comes to the public, and it seems like this is geared a little bit, well, it serves both purposes, and so it just.
Yeah, you're right.
I know that in the past, we haven't necessarily seen a report on the emergency tree removals. I don't know that we need the full report, but John, even if we could just have like 3 pictures of different angles and just say, this is why it was removed,
We've had a few of those. He's come and said, I had an emergency removal. It's not a full report, but.
Yeah, I don't want to bother you with the full report, but just to document that with pictures, I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess
What's that?
We are oversight. Yeah, we are oversight.
Yeah, exactly.
If the tree comes out, we should know about it.
That's right. So I think it's right here in the policy, so we should be looking at that.
But I do think, like, in terms of reducing harassment, like, not harassment, but, like, a call of a concerned neighbor saying, like, hey, this is coming down, I didn't know about it, then having the crew out there with the permit would be good, so maybe it should just be formalized. So you can point to that in case.
Yeah, we refer to removal permits, or, we never really had a permit, an actual piece of paper, so. Planting or removing, so.
And I will say that if we get through this, that I can then revise with your revisions, and we can bring it back for in October, so you can see what it looks like.
Okay.
As we get through this.
Yeah.
So I could take a stab at adding red
Take a
tag
stab
that-
at some language, because I'm not coming up with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it could just be a red piece of paper that says this tree has been determined to be
Exactly.
a danger and will be removed, yeah, and just you, yeah.
Should reference where they can find more information on the website or something.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so can we go on to 2.1A? Does that sound good? So 2.1A, the city tree is determined by the urban forester to be dying, damaged, diseased, or borer infested upon reclamation. It sounds like we didn't have dying before. Is that right, Shelley?
Okay, so just remember that these are the criteria, so the next is really important. This is the criteria that has to be met, some or all, in order for a tree to be considered for removal. This is what John is looking at. And semi-unfortunately, this is the options available for people when they fill out the application, because they're not the urban forester, but they're making a guess on why they want their tree removed. So these criteria are really important, so.
Yeah, and I would, so I guess we have those checkboxes there for the, sort of to prompt the resident to know that those are the criteria that we'll be using. I think it just come up in the past that sometimes that can be confusing to the public and commissioners, because it seems like that's John's recommendation.
It's just the application.
It's just the application.
Yes,
I don't know if there's anything we should do there. That's, I guess, not within what we're doing today, so maybe for a later agenda item to look at that.
The application is at the end, so if we get
that is, okay.
If we get there, we can check it out.
Great. So 2.1, so do you want to, 2.1C is, this is a change. So this is about sidewalk repair, at least one previous occasion. So we're changing this to at least one previous occasion within 10 years, as proven by documentation or determined by the urban forester's inspection.
Right. We don't have a time frame right now, so people are submitting things from the 50s. If they can find them, they probably are submitting them. This also aligns with the Public Works, the sidewalk program of the criteria that will allow you, if you decided to deny a tree because it's healthy, but move it to a higher category in the sidewalk repair. 10 years is one of their criteria. As well as this is the number of years the city of Berkeley uses for, they don't remove trees, but they will replace your sidewalk like 3 times if something keeps happening within 10 years. So it's a troubled tree, so they keep footing the bill for those sidewalk repairs. So that's why that's been added as a suggestion.
Okay.
So my comment on this section actually wasn't the 10 years, which I was pretty fine with, but above, and this isn't redlined, but constitutes a tripping hazard, I would like to see or barrier to access, because we have had an incident where the tree pulling up the sidewalk actually wasn't creating a tripping hazard. It wasn't but it was creating a slope where water pooled and this elderly woman would slip trying to walk up the little hill. It's just this kind of this crazy thing. I thought barrier to access is a little more universal than tripping hazard. You have to be walking on 2 feet to trip, whereas there could be all kinds of problems with
Or like
access.
being able to get a stroller over some roots
stroller
is like
Or
impossible.
they've had some ADA complaints about.
Exactly, and presumably most of the ones that pose a genuine ADA issue would probably trip you as well, but there might be some others that don't, and I would like to see that included. But I'd also like to see, I remember now you mentioned Berkeley will fix your sidewalk. In the interest of preserving the tree, they will go in as, okay, we'll give this tree another shot, we'll pay for the sidewalk. I know Preston here has something to say about sidewalk funds. I'd love to see some little carve out or some availability of that, but that's a lot to ask with our limited funds and the amount of work we have to do right now, but maybe in the future.
Well, also Shelley made the point that generally we don't see that many that are just about the sidewalk, that it's usually some other issue too. Like a lot of the ones we saw today, they were sidewalk, but also dead or limb failure. So I think you had estimated, Shelley, would be under 10 or something like that, which I don't think is.
So it's a small budget item, that's great.
Yeah.
We've gone down that a number of meetings, because the Berkeley model is, it's a 50-50 split the first time, and then it's 100% if it happens again in another 10 years, and if it happens again in another 10 years, it's another 100%. So that's theirs. I know that, Public Works is trying to get down the list they already have established. So the benefit to us is that we say we'll review this policy every 2 years, and so maybe in a couple of years, they'll
I
have
just
a better
figure
handle.
when they get caught up is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
But when, even if you do go in and repair the sidewalk, there's always that large period of time where the sidewalk is in disrepair. Like, it might be a short period or a long period, but then it's an issue for the people. And so what I do appreciate about this policy is that, if the tree really is that, then you replace it with something hopefully that won't cause some of those issues based on the list that John revised a few months ago. So I do think it's, I know we're losing some trees, but in some cases that might be for the overall benefit in the long term.
Okay.
Okay, so any concerns with that one? Looks like that's okay.
I just like the barrier to add, barrier to access.
Oh, to add barrier to
Should be hazard
access.
or barrier to access. Significant barrier, I'm not sure how to phrase that, but maybe.
I would like to add, it can include significant barrier. I mean, if we're going to do the barrier, I think it should be significant, because there's many different,
because
interpretations.
You're right, yeah, you're right.
I don't know, but I don't need to have that in there, so how do other commissioners feel about that?
Sounds good.
Okay. So 2.1D.
Why is it highlighted?
It got a big in discussion. It was, should this even be in here as a criteria? This is the question posed to the commissioners. Because this happens at the time sidewalk repair is taking place, and John might be there and determines at that time that the amount of roots that are going to be cut away would be detrimental to the tree, and then you may say the tree should come out because it's going to die or become a hazard.
This
hasn't really happened yet, right?
This one's not clear for me, because at the city tree at the time of sidewalk, so as the sidewalk's actually being repaired at that time is what this is.
It's when John's
supposed
on
to apply
site,
for.
basically.
Yeah.
You can use it as an approval. You might say, we want to keep the tree, but John, if you realize while they're replacing the sidewalk.
That's actually one of my other comments.
What if they're replacing the sidewalk, John's there, and it says that you're going to cut too many roots? Why don't they change the sidewalk angles if that's
He could say that too, yeah.
Yeah, and that would come back to us or something.
When there's sidewalk repair, I look at all these locations before anything's done, and I make some recommendations to the program manager, and whether we can arc it or just curve out the whole sidewalk or whatever we can do. And a lot of them are just root prune. Some of them we're doing some crown thinning to kind of balance for missing roots. So we're kind of doing this beforehand, but there may be some where there are some where we take up the sidewalk and there's not really anything there, not much in the way of roots. There are some where we don't expect and there's monster roots underneath. So I don't know. This I feel has some value. I don't think it'll be used too often, but there may be cases. When I first came on, there was one tree that was there was a petition. A lot of people signed to save the tree, but the tree had other issues. But the decision was, okay, we're going to deny the removal. I think the city initiated the removal. We're going to deny the removal, but when the sidewalk comes up, I was to go out and inspect it. And when I went out and looked at it, it needed to go out. There were some really huge roots on a pretty poor condition ash tree that was basically split down the middle already. So there were other issues there. But so I think that's the only case where I use this as a.
I see. And I was actually going to suggest later on that we add a third option, approve, deny, and conditional approval. which is kind of this situation where, because it comes up a lot. Once you pull up the sidewalk, I can evaluate. Until then, so rather than having to do this kind of awkward, well, we're going to deny it, but then if we approve it, then go cut the tree down, as far as I know, or it can be cut down. But if we deny it and then say, well, but John can make the determination then. So I was going to add a third option, because we're not complicated enough.
But it's true, I just don't think it's probably a criteria for removal.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, as one of the people who did the draft, I think that this was the one where we were trying to find a way to get in, codify here the options, the realigning the sidewalk options, trying to make that in black and white in the policy. And I think that's what we're doing here, as kind of that second clause. I think we added that on to, actually, I'm not even sure that.
It's now part of the sidewalk program.
Right, yeah. So
unless the property owner is doing their own sidewalk repair, then I don't know that we
wanted to be sure that the Parks and Rec Commission had considered options that, they can move it out, because we're kind of just learning about it ourselves at that point. So I'm not sure that needs to be here anymore, because I think we're all very aware of it, and you certainly are taking it into consideration. So yeah, I'm not sure we need this anymore.
And you did add the 2 paragraphs on sidewalk repair towards the end, which is a pretty full description about alignment and.
I just want to make sure I understand the implications of taking this out.
Well, maybe it just be moved to a different area.
Okay.
So we could just think about that as we go through, if there's a more appropriate spot to still keep it.
Okay,
Keep
good.
it and see what we're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah.
And then see where it needs to go in the line.
Okay, I like that, because it does, it concerns me just removing it altogether. I'm not sure exactly why, though. So 2.2, city tree removal permit process, A.
We're just correcting.
Oh, yeah, so
where it
that's
happens.
just a practical, logistical thing where the wrong department was listed. Okay. 2.3B.
Again, just correcting, we go by Public Works Department.
Okay, great. There is something in so 2.3B, Shelley, if you just remind me, this is the urban forester staff report shall include the following information. This is what Gino and I came up with when we were talking about what else would be helpful to have in that report that we currently don't have. And Gino, let me know if there's anything I'm missing there, but that's the notes that I had from our conversations, so. So I'm putting you on the spot. Just so you all know, the permits related to tree planting, one of the things that we can change in that application is not necessarily to put that on John, the urban forester, but put that on the applicant, because, it's just a question. And I don't know, practically, if the applicant does not provide the permit, does John then have to go look at that? I feel
In terms of a sidewalk repair?
Yeah, sidewalk repair or any other reason that they might have, like, it's affecting my sewer lateral line, or I had to get it repaired because of the tree. Like, are we requiring John to do that? And so how do you feel about that?
John's supposed to have it supporting documentation. Do you usually get it from the homeowner?
I ask them, but they don't always provide it. But the one of the criterias that, for my determination, I can tell that the sidewalk had been repaired. I can't tell if it's been repaired within 10 years, though, but I can tell where a newish sidewalk is there. And more often than not, I could see the root pruning that was done. That's the way I would determine that, so.
But I think we are wanting, especially if it changes within 10 years, our records here are going to have within 10 years if you have sidewalk repaired. But if you're going back to 1950, it's going to take some microfiche or something.
I think we understand it's not going to be, unless they have the document, it's not going to be exact.
Right. And I think one of the things, just so you all know, what Gino and I discussed was assessment of whether a tree was illegally pruned or topped. We never really, John might give us that information, but I think it's good for us to be formal about documenting that, because we've had that ginkgo tree owner just basically hack away at it and then not, that's illegal. So just want to make sure that we're recognizing good and bad actors.
Usually I bring that up in my report, but does that change what
can
the
you do?
decision would be? Yeah. I mean, if I'm bringing it up, it's a detriment to the tree, and
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Then maybe we should include that in here. And I think that's an oversight of not thinking about how to incorporate that. So this is the place to have that discussion, is if somebody's illegally pruned their tree, illegally topped their tree and are requesting a removal because they killed it, what should we do? And where should...
A city tree, not their tree.
City tree, that's right, city tree. How should we...
They should pay for removal.
Well, sorry, is there
Well,
a
at least,
definition
yeah.
of what
Yes.
you can and can't do? So like, there is. So like,
Oh, sorry.
if there's a tree with a ton of suckers and you want to like get rid of those, but then somehow that zaps the vigor of the tree and that kills the tree, like, is that something that's illegal or not?
I think any pruning is, you actually need to get a permit, right, John?
An encroachment permit.
You're supposed to.
again,
We've had that
we have no real permits for this, and I discussed this with property owners. Most property owners just expect that the city does all pruning, and I've been denying some pruning because it's just kind of aesthetic, balancing, or it's dropping leaves over my driveway or something. We don't
Right.
do that. I prune more for safety, clearance issues, that kind of thing. So, yeah, the problem is if somebody prunes, tops their tree and kills it or whatever, there's nothing that really stops them from doing that. And if they do that, are we going to deny the removal?
Well, I think what Todd was saying, that we shouldn't pay
remove
for
We
it.
replace it.
At least we don't pay for it. I mean, I think that's, we
That's-
should say, if you don't have a removal, if your tree was
That's
obviously...
a good option, but
yeah.
how do we enforce that?
That's not what
That's-
we do here. That has to go into another
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
in
we
the
don't
city.
really have
Yeah, we don't have-
enforcement or any kind of.
What enforcement of what? Well, I'm not even talking about enforcement, though, is if they actually do have to pay. I don't think,
How do we make them pay, though?
or it just
We have no
stays
legal
there.
standing to demand that. This body has no legal.
Or we can just deny it, because I see what you're saying.
There's
Okay.
no fine structure.
Calling on somebody.
I don't know.
I think this is a discussion, because I don't think we can do that. This policy is not the place for that.
Why? But why not, though?
because-
Where is it going to be then?
There, in the municipal code, there is a section on trimming trees, what is required. It does say that you're supposed to have them done professionally. We don't currently have a code enforcement person that goes around and, gives out those notices that we're going to fine you for pruning your tree. So there's like a.
Is it
this
possible
bigger-
to find them, though? Because we do see that. I mean, occasionally.
Yeah. They've looked into that because they're trying to figure out how that works. We
Yeah.
don't necessarily have very many
Yeah.
But what
fines
happens?
we do and how we impose that on people. It's on their property tax or.
But what happens though then if you do have a situation where somebody has done that to their tree, they've created a situation where the tree is a hazard, it hasn't been noticed by anyone, and then because they might get fined, they don't want to submit a tree removal permit to us, and then it does like cause an emergency situation,
Interesting.
right? Like I know, like I totally get that sentiment, but I don't want to disincentivize removing dangerous trees.
Dangerous trees, right.
Yeah, I also don't want to incentivize killing your tree.
Well, I mean-
I do think that there's some way we can be creative and thoughtful about this and see how we can.
I mean, I would also say, I think we've seen this come up once in my time on the,
Really? With that ginkgo, the ginkgo,
It was just-
that was the only time you saw that?
something that was clearly
It was so egregious.
It was so memorable.
It was so egregious.
malevolent.
Okay, but
Well, I know of 2 trees
You
that
have
were
2?
removed completely at the end of Buchanan.
Because of,
On their
Were
own.
there when I started and were soon
Gone.
missing. Yeah, and the stumps are there.
yeah.
So,
Oh, somebody just removed it on their own?
Yeah, they cut
Okay.
Wow.
to the ground.
Yeah,
So
well, that's a different issue, yeah.
I don't have any,
Yeah, there's nothing to do.
can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
I can go grind the stumps and plant new trees, but I'm sure they'll just kill those trees. So.
the point of this, main item is what information do you need John to provide you so you feel comfortable making a decision on it?
Yeah.
And so if there's others, or maybe this is something you want to really think about, but then that will help John prepare for the meeting so that you have the information you need. You currently do your assessment, it's mainly for you, but it does have bits of these information, like the size of the tree, the size of the trunk, those things on it. Because John, I'll let him talk about, he was thinking of changing your staff reports. Is that what you're?
Well, I did a little bit, yeah. Some of this is there. I put DBH and height. I don't
Saw
put
that.
Great.
ground size, but.
Great.
But definitely getting, because if it's a criteria that you have to show you've replaced your sidewalk, they better have documentation for it. Because if it is 20 years ago, then that's a pretty long time ago.
Yep.
But you have been doing that.
Yeah, if we're changing that, that changes.
Well, I don't think we're
Approach to that.
requiring, I don't think we can require documentation to prove that it was within 10 years. Because property changes hands, things happen.
No, but you should, these records should be, the records or building
Should be,
permits are in
yes,
there.
but just because,
Well,
the
I'm
previous
just-
owner didn't save the receipt, means I can't.
No, we have
No, it's on
permits here.
file, on
Oh,
public
well, to the
records.
degree that the city has it, great, sure, no, that's fine, that's fine. But I also understand that there's some dicey, you go back far enough, although maybe
yeah.
it's more than 10 years, city records aren't, apparently before everything became digital, got all those records. After everything was thoroughly digital, fine, it was the transition, we got nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, so it should be okay, because the last 10
Yeah,
years
that's
is probably
probably-
okay.
you're right.
Okay. So if anybody else has any comments on the other information in the staff report, do you want to, can we move on to the next section there? It's if the street, let's see, I'm just
Oh,
trying to see
I'm
what-
just, should we refund partial application fee if tree determined not to meet criteria?
This is a big topic.
Yeah,
Do you want to hear the idea?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, you want me to do it, huh?
Oh,
This is
why?
This is, okay.
I like how you described it, so, yeah, go ahead.
People fill out the application, they say my tree is dying and it's dead, and I go in and pay my $204, or whatever the criteria is that they select, is not always the case, right? It's not dead, it's a living tree, it's fine, or it's not causing the damage you say it is. Just, you pick one of those things, because John goes out and does a report on each of those trees, that's what you get. The idea is that if someone, just because someone turns in the application and they have to pay $204, doesn't mean that it actually meets any of the criteria, and they've paid $204. So there's part of it that's like a waste for them. They really want their tree evaluated. They probably want it out for some reason. Could there be an option? They go in, they pay their $204. They've said what's wrong with the tree. John goes out and does his normal evaluation, but if he determines this doesn't meet any of the criteria we have, your tree is totally fine, would this make sense to make an option? Then they would be refunded a portion of that $204 because it's not going to move forward. We're not going to waste your money.
Additional time.
And it's not.
And John's time is way more than $200 of his staff time to create that report, right?
yeah,
He's already going to do the report.
They'll be getting a free consulting arborist report.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, you would still do the report? Okay.
Well, if I determine the tree's fine, I'm letting them know that,
Right. Sure.
we're not going to take this.
It goes into
It's an
staff time.
administrative
Yeah, it's administrative fee.
cost, it's an application fee, like anything else you apply for.
You were on the clock anyways, right? I mean,
Maybe not handling that tree, no.
Yeah.
But his
The other
time is,
trees
but
do.
no, but there's opportunity costs. He could be like,
Yeah.
he could be replanting trees or something.
You could
then
keep
you're
an
refunding
option.
money that was going towards his job.
No, I know. I hear ya. I hear ya.
Why would you refund money if it's paying for something? But if it's really there just to deter people from filling out application after application,
Right.
trying to
No.
get their tree removed, that's a different story. So
Right.
That's what I'm trying to determine.
Well, it
We have a number of
supposedly
fees
goes
that-
into the,
Money if it's something that.
the money goes to the urban forestry budget, which kind of runs short towards the end of the fiscal year.
What's the, sorry, Shelley, I know we had
Can I
a,
just say the final thing would be that if they
Yeah.
did, if the homeowner did not agree with that, they could still appeal that it goes to Parks and Rec and it would go through the normal process.
so my question about that was, I thought that the refund would happen if John didn't have to do a whole report. And to me, if he's still doing the whole report, I don't see how I don't see what the point is.
So John, talks to the homeowner, evaluates the tree, then they have the option of withdrawing their application and having half their money back.
He hasn't done anything.
Because he hasn't done anything.
That's what I'm saying.
Or they go forward, he does the full report.
Right.
Right, it could be
Exactly.
a modified,
Working
yes.
then.
I think it should be a modified report, just so it doesn't take too,
No,
Right.
no report.
or no report,
No
exactly.
report.
I think, that's what I
Withdraw my
like.
application.
That's right. That's right.
What do you think? How often does it happen?
It doesn't, I was just thinking that it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
More often I speak to the property owner and I recommend, or I tell them, no, this isn't going to be approved. So, or I recommend that they do apply if
Okay.
it will be approved.
Oh,
So
before they've done the application at all?
if I get a chance, there's none that just come in out of the blue that
Okay.
I don't know anything about, and I look at it and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the tree, so.
Well, that could be the question of, is that the best use of John's time, stopping at every site just because they want you to tell you if they should apply or not? Like, if they really feel like the tree is meeting a qualification.
Right.
Because otherwise, he's doing all these site visits then.
Are you doing a lot of site visits? Because people, what is that?
Not a lot. You're seeing most of them that I do. Most of them I'm out there for a different reason, and they bring up removing, or I get a call that the tree's dead and I go out and look at it quick and I go back and call them and say, no, your tree's just dormant for the winter and it'll come back in the spring, so.
Okay.
So does the $200 go towards overtime for commission meetings that go on way late? Is that one of the things it goes towards? Because
Might have to raise the
Public
fee.
duties.
It's a fee in our master fee schedule,
Say that it goes into a fund.
Yeah.
It supposedly does. For right now, I don't know where to find it, but Mark Hurley is
But
working
that
on.
fund seems to deplete at the end of the year, you say?
Well, my budget does. Yeah, I spend the money.
Different fund.
Yeah.
His budget is a different fund.
and I
You know where money goes, right?
and we have on occasion, and I'm trying to remember what the situations were, where like somebody applied and it was borderline and we denied it, but said check back in 6 months or something. And in those situations, we've said, well, maybe we can refund their money. Do you remember something like that?
I think it was because it was one of those, it was a difficult tree sidewalk conflict, I feel like, and we asked them to return, or there was some reason why we asked them to come back.
Yeah,
They
but
came
that's
back
an
twice.
option, and I don't think we need to codify that in any way.
No.
Just have that open to.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling like Gino is, and I think also it might cause administrative time just to do that whole refund process. So maybe we'll just keep it the way it is, if it doesn't seem like there's that many of those instances that come up. But I like the creative thinking, so.
Yeah, case by case, I guess, would work if it comes up.
The only thing I would say is if you are getting those calls, maybe they should be paying the $200. You're doing a lot of freebies, but anyway. Okay.
Well, one thing, and sometimes I suggest that if they really feel that they want the tree removed, and I'm kind of borderline on it, I say get an arborist to do a report.
Yeah,
So
okay.
they're paying an arborist more than $209.52 or something like that. It was raised
Yeah.
recently. But, yeah, so they would get, if they have somebody else's, another professional's opinion, then I could say, okay, well, I'm borderline, but here's another arborist that says it's in bad shape, and I haven't had any of those yet, but I suggest that.
So C was added, so you're saying no onto the C, so remove that.
Remove the A.
Remove all of C or remove A?
Just A, right? Oh, let's see the change.
There should be partial fund.
Oh, I
it's
see. Sorry, I spoke too soon.
No, it's C, the one we were just talking about, right?
Yep. Yep.
The red
C.
text was added.
C and then A. There's C and then there's CA.
So we can just remove that whole
We were
thing.
talking about remove the whole thing as well? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So it always has to come to us. Has to go through the full process.
Okay, so next one is public meeting required, 2.5, public meeting required, urban forester shall send notice. Okay, does anybody have a problem with that? It's just a logistical
Just
thing.
process, yeah.
Process. And then
I don't like that.
A3, city council. Why are we deleting via email, city council? Was that ever?
We've never really done that as
Got
like
it.
a process, so.
So we've been out of compliance, is what you're saying.
I started doing it, and the question was like, why are you sending that to them? I can do it, like.
Well, yeah, because
They get
honestly,
the-
that's
they read it.
actually, it's funny because that is one of my concerns is sometimes I feel like I hear about it so late, like it's right before the meetings, we don't know. So we should talk about that. Would it be helpful to have more of a heads up? Is that what you,
No,
that's what
this
that,
goes
no?
to city council.
No,
Never mind,
we're only talking about
sorry,
city
we're not
council
talking about commission.
notified,
Never mind, never mind.
They don't really want to
Change.
know.
Yeah, yep, I agree.
Unless it's.
Next. Okay. 2.6, posting of the city tree required.
This is just about who maintains the sign on the tree,
Yeah.
right? The wrap on the tree.
I think it should be a team effort. I'm going to speak for John on this one, but it should be a team effort. Maybe John can provide the tree person with extra copies, but they're most likely going to see it before John sees it. I don't think he's going to spend his time driving around to every single posting all day.
And they're
long.
motivated because they want to go through the process,
Yeah.
so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless they don't want people coming in to say, save.
Yeah, that's right.
That happened in San Francisco, a lot of people.
Well, you may need to drive by occasionally anyway, but not every day, yeah.
Yeah, because it can come down, a kid's walking to school and that thing comes out of there,
I mean,
so.
that's actually my only concern about this, is including the applicant and working to keep it posting. You're kind of giving them the authority to interact with that sign.
It used to say property owner.
Yeah, it used to say it was even just the property owners.
Would notify if the notice was no longer.
Oh, so you think that's better?
Until the urban forester.
Mm-hmm.
Well.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well.
I think the change is fine. I don't have a problem with this. It just potentially opens the door to saying you have some control over this.
Right.
But
And posting more trees or different trees, is that what you're thinking? Or?
Well, no, I'm just thinking by saying the applicant is partially responsible for keeping the sign, the notice on the tree, kind of gives them an end to say, I have some control over the notice on the tree. I
You
can
might
touch
mess
it
around
now.
with that.
I can touch it. I can do things, as opposed to here, don't touch it. You just tell the urban forester to touch it. But I don't think it's a big deal either way. It's the way,
Okay.
I think it's fine. The change
Okay.
is fine. Sorry I said anything.
I
Okay.
kind of agree
Either
with
way.
you. You make a
Go
good
either
point.
way,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to go back to the original. Might we just stay with the original then?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think that is a concern.
All right. Okay, I repeat then what I just got back.
Okay, then 2.7, that first introductory paragraph.
Just clarifying that
Okay.
John gets to send them an email.
Preston.
Rather than going back to that language, could you keep the applicant instead of the property owner? Because the property owner implies that it's the person who owns the property the tree is on, which is not the case.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That's good.
But the applicant is the property owner.
Can
to
they
be.
never, they can't be? We can put,
It's a right of way.
they could be could you put
I mean, it says in
applicant?
our policy, I'm just letting you
Well,
know.
no, but it's, they don't own the property the tree is actually on.
Yeah, it's public property. The
Adjacent
tree,
property
It's
owner.
adjacent, the adjacent property owner.
Adjacent property
you could
owner?
say adjacent property owner if you want, but just don't say property
That's what I
owner.
said earlier.
Fronting?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Sorry,
fronting.
does that, and just
I
for,
think it's a fronting.
just because we're bringing that up, does that mean that only if you're a property, only if you're the property owner, the street fronting property owner, you can't be a renter and ask for this? Okay.
So you'd have to go through.
Do you guys want to vote to continue on past 10? Is your,
Oh, thank you for that. Do you want to pick it up next time? How many more do we have?
Well, there's not that much more. There's the sidewalk addition and, well, but then there's the
Yeah, let's continue
the
it.
removal application.
I have to go before you.
Yeah, let's,
Okay.
I'm going to anyway.
okay, well, I can incorporate the changes from tonight and we can continue.
Okay, sounds good. If we're going to do that anyway, that makes sense. Okay, great.
Does that mean that the agenda item where we?
So for
propose-
next agenda item, right, to continue this conversation, next agenda.
Yeah.
Any other agenda items?
Well, we had talked about a little bit of doing interpretive signs, and that would be something that would fall under the Park and Rec Commission purview, and so that's a topic I'd like to explore at future
Oh, for
meetings.
the Albany Hill or just in
No,
general?
I think it was in general.
Okay.
Oh, it's for Albany Hill was the, well,
I think
Well, that-
specifically.
Specifically Albany Hill, but that in general. And so that's a topic I'd like to address in a future meeting.
And then also, we're going to bring back I guess Robert's going to bring back that material type, right? Okay, great. And you know what? We could probably do a update on the dog park committee
Yeah.
at that point, too, subcommittee. Okay, thanks. Meeting adjourned.
Just didn't die.